means you really understand
that as a placeholder in the template as well, just so that
stressful for the people to take on.
All right, hey, it's worthless.
Across the company, I think it's a very
HR Summer School. Welcome back, everybody. We're so glad you're here with us for day 3. Always a big celebration, maybe a bit of a whew, for me and George after all have put together for this. And for the rest of us, I mean, goodness, it's a little bit of a, again, do the little single tear there, George. It's a lot to come together, get everybody together. And you're like, oh man, it's the last day. So don't worry. We'll be sharing some things with you in our announcements today about things that are coming up, either near term or long term, that we know you'll all be excited about. So lots of big announcements and exciting things in the works. First off, really quickly, George always reminds me of this. Thank goodness for you, George. You're watching this on LinkedIn. You're watching this on Facebook. You're watching this wherever you might be, other than the StreamYard on air. You're kind of stuck there. But if you're watching it on one of those social platforms, please reshare. Just pop that link in, reshare it, and tell people you're watching Summer School so they can find it too. Yesterday, we had 150 people sign up that just saw it because of people like you saying, hey, here's what I'm doing. I'm hanging out here. I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm having some fun. Winning some prizes, like all the good stuff. So please do that. George, you ready, man? Let's do this thing.
I am ready. I'm excited. This is the final day, but it's exciting because all the new people, as you said, the freshmen that are joining all across the world. And we're so grateful for everybody today.
Yeah. And by the way, no, for those of you who are wondering, no, we did not coordinate. George and I separately showed up with these outfits on. And so we're wearing our employee belonging is the ranch dressing of HR shirt in tribute to our good friend Amy Mosher from iSolve. She came up with this a couple years ago. It's just a saying in a conversation, and the audience loved it so much. I said, we'll put it on a shirt for you. And I got a chance to actually present that to her in person and celebrate with her that win. So we got a great picture of us together wearing our shirts. So anyway, fun stuff. That's what we got today. Let's jump into some announcements and things that we have to get through. First off, thank you, as always, to our sponsors and partners for working with us, for helping to make Summer School available to all of you and to make it free. Goodness, it's so great to be able to do this and to let all of you attend because the budget works for everybody. It's awesome. Today, we'll hear from our friends at Cornerstone, great conversation with Mike, and then have a session with the team of Verified First as well to talk about some of the stuff that they're seeing around candidate fraud and how we can prevent that, how you can think about those sorts of things. David and I go into the weeds on that, and it's, again, a fun, nerdy conversation. So lots of good things to cover. George, let's move on.
You know, I'm not used to having the clicker over here, Ben. I'm so used to you just having the tab over there.
I'm giving you control of the slides, and it's too much for you, George. It's too much for you. Really quickly on announcements, we'll be giving things away today. We'll give some things away shortly, but stay engaged. Please stay connected in here. If you find this stream later or you're watching it and it's July or December or whatever else, it's after the fact, you can still go back and sign up so you get updates on these sorts of things. And so the link, summerschool.org, hrsummerschool.org, at the bottom is the same link it's always going to be. Credits will come after today's session. Stay tuned. And then we'll try to stick to schedule, but we're having some fun here. And sometimes that gets a little bit wacky. So there we go.
This is an exciting time, Ben. One of our favorite things, if you're posting, please continue to share these even today after the fact. If you want to take some time and do a recap, if you're going to write a blog or article, please make sure, one, you also use the hashtag HR Summer School, but tag Ben and I. We want to be able to repost those. We've been able to do so. I like to go over there. I'm actually going to take, my family's leaving us, me, Ben, right now. They're packing and leaving the house, and I'm going to join them tomorrow night. But I'm going to take the whole weekend just to kind of take this in, soak in, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, all our comments that are going on, and go back and really be able to dig into some of these, because there have been incredible posts, getting creative with some of the pictures and AI chats, creating some things, tug of the heart. I posted my dog a few weeks ago promoting summer school, and so we had one of the dog pictures out there by Michelle, I believe it was, that posted that. So the dog was getting ready and prepped and energized for a great summer school final day. So we're excited about that. Continue to post. We love it. As Ben mentioned, like, comment, share all this incredible fun as well.
Yeah, so if you like the shirts that George and I are wearing, or you saw the other ones we're wearing this week, the Future of Work is Human shirt. Someone told me earlier in the event that they loved the one last year because it started a lot of conversations about the fire extinguisher and the fire prevention plan. That was fun. I almost wore, George, the one from 2 years ago, the one size fits one. We all know that one size does not fit all, and we know better than everybody. So that was a fun one. So lots of great things here, and it just supports summer school and the good stuff we're doing in the community. So if you want to get one of those, you can scan the code there and go and grab your goodies and gear. So, all right. So we have some books. So several of you have been posting and sharing about it. We're going to keep giving these things away over the next week, but several of you have been sharing about the event. So we're going to be giving away some books to our crew here. So Jill on our back end, on our side, is going to be reaching out to connect with each of you, make sure we get a good mailing address so we can ship you some books. I let the team know this morning that as a bonus, I'll be throwing in our HR Summer School notebooks for everyone who won a book this year as an extra, just as a thank you for showing up with us. The reason we did this, by the way, a couple years ago was every good HR pro needs a notebook, right? Some way to write things down. But within there are these little like mini chapters about takeaways, like the little bits from me and George you get between sessions. We have like a QR code to go back and see a great session from one of our previous speakers. So fun stuff woven into that. It's not just a lined notebook, but lots of extra summer school goodness. And obviously a foreword to kick it off from me and George about the importance of the work you're doing today. So stay tuned for more stuff coming. George, you're going to be.
Hey, listen, I'm gonna add something different. We had several people that have emailed or scanned the QR code that's on the screen right now. You can also visit events.lhra.io SHRM 2026 George. That's really long. Take a screenshot. Connect with me. This is just a forum for me to reach out to you following HR Summer School. I'm gonna reach out to all those people who have connected with me. But special announcement on Wednesday, I will be wearing my HR Summer School shirt. On Wednesday, if you have an HR Summer School shirt and you're going to be there, wear it Wednesday. Let's connect. I would love to get pictures with everyone. If we can get a big group picture, you can meet me at High Bob's booth 2927. I'll be there Wednesday, and then Wednesday afternoon, we're going to be selecting a group of people to join us at a private location. It's going to be a very secret location, but you got to make sure you're registered. I'll be able to contact you there. And first come, first serve. I'm going to pick the first few people, maybe 50 people or so, and we're going to go on a little private trip. Food and beverages will be there, but I guarantee you labs will be shared.
All right. Good stuff. One last call out here. So George and I the last year have, again, the biggest complaint we get about summer school, George, is what?
Not enough.
Not enough. That is the thing we hear from all of you. Not enough. And so George has talked about the extra credit sessions that he works with different groups on across the country, different states, different chapters, getting their people together. We do those sorts of things monthly. But one other thing we've been working on, and we've been actually building out some things behind the scenes, got some confirmations just in the last 24 hours from some of our people in our community. So we're going to be putting together more content in our Lighthouse community. So if you attend events, you like connecting with people here, but you want to go deeper, that's a way to do that. If you want more time, like George spends time in there every week. This is his job. He spends time in there and connects with people, answers questions, it's supportive. But we're also going to be building some training that goes in there that's only accessible to people who are in the community. So you can check it out there. Price is going to go up in just 1 week. And so we've confirmed that Maria Scott, who was with us this week, is going to be doing some content with us for that privately, just for that session, exclusive. George is going to be doing some special stuff around balance and burnout for HR specifically, not a generic thing, but for all of you who were carrying the load of HR leaders. I'm going to be doing a special session just for those people around some of the ways that I'm seeing teams use AI, how to save 10 hours a month is the goal for me. So every attendee who comes to that will be able to save at least 10 hours a month using some of the tools that are out there. So we're putting these things together for all of you to go deeper, to give you more of what you're asking for. So check that one out. That's for those of you that it's like, oh, I love summer school. How can I support? That's it right there. All right, George.
And just one more call out on that.
Yeah.
Right now, it's $5 monthly or $50 up front. It's going to change next Tuesday, June 9th. It's going up. And so you have just about 5 days or so to make sure you register over the weekend, get there ready. Then it goes up double. So that is the big change that's going to happen. So if you're interested, in make sure you do so. Ben, you know what I'm excited about?
What are you excited about, George?
I'm excited about you. I am going to dismiss myself. One of the things that I get to share selfishly, and I want to say this as I introduce the first pre-speaker of HR Summer School Day 3, Ben Eubanks. One thing that I think you're going to enjoy about this today is you get to see Ben do what he loves most. And that's not necessarily to speak. That's actually to empower us. And so without further ado, everybody, let me see the likes, the love in the comments above for the principal of HR Summer School, Ben Eubanks.
Thank you so much, George. So as I was thinking about what I wanted to give all of you as we start our last day of summer school, this theme this year, the future of work is human. We've had so many great conversations with speakers, with all of you, with our live audience. We were together this week. Like all those sorts of things are feeding into this. And I keep going back to the fact that we're talking about AI like it's the answer to everything. And yet we don't still fully understand and get to the depth of how people work their best right now. Right. So I went through and just grabbed a couple of findings from research done over the last year about work, about how people interact, about psychology and the human mind. And what you find is we're still breaking new boundaries there. We're still understanding more about people every day, every week than we knew before. And work has been around for a long time. Relationships have been around for a long time. People have been around for a very long time. And we're discovering new things like the fact that, interestingly enough, people are talking less. Interesting. The year that the iPhone came out, 2007, is also the year that people started talking less and less every day to the people around them. We heard this week, people are talking a lot, but we're not necessarily communicating. We know they're not the same sorts of things. So we're using fewer words. We're maybe using more substitutes on these devices, like it or not. That's a reality. And so we have to know that. Right. The piece of research I just saw that says job design, how we put together jobs, affects motivation, because if we give people rotational tasks, we give them autonomy, we give them a chance to try new things, they actually are more motivated than if we spend a lot of time trying to build a very specific recognition program or other engagement program for them. One of the other ones that sticks out that George is going to love, he didn't even know I was going to share this, but there was a piece of research that said, we look at all the things that motivate people at work. Finding meaning in work is one of the biggest motivators that there is. So if we're helping our people, like we talked about this week, not just your job title, but your bigger impact, if we can help them see that, that drives motivation. It drives a connection to the people around them. It drives them to show up and give their best effort. Those things all tie in. And I'm sharing these stats, these details here with you because these show me, all of these point out to me that we are still understanding more about us and how we work and how we get things done. See, AI is positioned as this answer to everything. It's great at all these things. And we can tell it's not great at some things. There are some hilarious fails out there about the gentleman who accidentally ordered 18,000 ice waters at Taco Bell because they used some AI tool to order his stuff, right? So there's these problems with how it works. And the thing that gets me is when we talk about AI, I'm going to show you something. We talk about AI, we talk about this side. Right? We talk about the brain, all the things that we can think, all the things it can do, how capable it is, the memory, all those things. But what matters to all of us is actually this side, right? The heart behind this, the heart behind the work we do, the meaning behind it, the connection to the people. That's what matters the most to me. Right? I had this specific thing made so I could talk about this with you today because this matters so much to me. The conversations around work are focused only on efficiency, productivity, getting things done, all of the brain stuff, right? All the knowledge. And as we've heard this week, we've reiterated, and we've heard from you too. You're pointing this right back at us. You're reflecting this on us, that we have to keep the human at the center of this, or we are going to look back on this a decade or more later and be regretful of the decisions we made. So for me, as I'm about to bring George back here just shortly, I want to just tell all of you, I'm grateful that you came this week. I'm grateful that you've hung with us. But most of all, I'm grateful that I'm seeing that you have a heart for people. You are in this not just to get things done, just to be productive. There's not a good HR person that I've ever met, including Christine, who you got to hear from yesterday, who trained and mentored me in HR. There's not anyone I've met who only is good at HR because they're getting a lot of things done. The very best ones care deeply first, and then they get the rest of those things accomplished because they care deeply as their starting points. George, I'm going to call you back in with me. You and I talk about this behind the scenes a lot about the community here, how we see people, how we see people, how we see work, how all this stuff gets accomplished. I'm the AI guy. I've written the book on it a couple of times. And yet I come back to the human piece because it matters so deeply. And I love that because you start most things on the human side. And I'm like, data, technology, all this, like bring it back to the human piece. So that's my share before we get started today. Anything you want to touch on or anything you want to comment before we get our first speaker rolling?
No, I'm glad that you use that box. That's one of my favorite things. I'm actually going through FOMO that I don't have one at all. I'm over here just trying to change different things and everything. I think that's a great open to a final day, Ben, because we talk about perception and perspective so much. And our perception is one thing and our perspective can be another. And I think we as leaders need people like yourself who are able to simply just turn us aside or show us a different angle. And I speak to the HR leaders here this morning, understanding that you too are an employee as much as you are a leader. And we always say every year it comes up, Ben, you can't pour from an empty cup. And so this week has been nothing short of being refilled, revived for many of us that's feel dead and burnt out. Restored for those who've been broken. And I want you to have all of that and some more. And I believe, especially as we're talking with our speakers today, we have Shane No, we have Mike Bollinger, we have Zach Doms is going to be speaking. You're going to be with Tyrese as well. And so we got all these great, David's going to speak in the gym. I believe those are our 6 speakers. I didn't want to leave anybody out. But we got all these incredible speakers today closing us out. And I can't wait to the end as we're recapping, Ben, on how all of this connects together, on how our perspectives and perceptions change. I will say this as I close. You got an acronym, and I didn't ask for it, but a acronym, Ben, and one of my favorite ones was bringing encouragement nonstop. That's who you are, my friend. That's why you are the first HR Summer School Community Award winner, because you bring encouragement nonstop.
Well, I'm grateful to have the chance to do this, to be able to serve, to be able to show up and do these sorts of things for everybody. This is what lights our fire, George. And so we get to share that with someone else. And I love about a fire, a candle, right? You're not diminishing, you are multiplying. And that's what we're doing right here. So let's get into this first conversation with Shane. I talked a little bit longer than I needed to, but I think you'll give me some grace on that. Let's jump into this first conversation with Shane around how we can speak finance, be bilingual there, and go from there. I'm so excited for another fun session here at Summer School. We have these incredible speakers. The privilege of running across. And last year, Shane and I were on a panel together, and I've been biding my time, waiting for the chance to bring him here and share him with all of you. And so I have Shane here. He is an HR leader at Astronis Space Technologies. We're going to be talking not about space, unfortunately, which we both could probably nerd out about, but about how we can connect the dots between our friends across the aisle, our finance partners and pen pals over there, and HR as the leaders here represent. So Shane, welcome. Glad you're here.
Yeah, great to see you again, Ben. Excited to be part of HR Summer School this year.
We're going to have some fun, man. I can't wait. So before we get into the good stuff we're going to talk about, would you take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please?
Sure. So I'm Shane Noe. I'm the Senior Vice President of People at Astronis Space Technologies. Design, build, and operate high orbit satellites right here in San Francisco it's a pretty cool warehouse where they used to build trains in the 1800s. So I describe myself as a recovering finance guy. I got into HR almost 10 years ago after a finance career at Google, Apple, Okta, really out of a desire to bring data to a function that at the time, 10 years ago, pretty underserved when it came to data. There weren't a lot of finance guys in the function. Very different story today, which is amazing to see. Function has evolved. But yeah, I would describe myself.
All right. Also, well, that's what I wanted to tie into, because when I heard you before, you talked a lot about the pieces around building business cases and how to have those conversations. And hey, when they say this, they really mean that, and some of those sorts of things. And so I was like, this is a great opportunity to bring some of that to all of us here and help us think through it. So talk about that transition, if you don't mind, right? This background in finance, coming into the HR, recruiting, talent side of things. Was it an easy transition? Were there things that surprised you? Talk about that.
Yeah. So one of the big breaks in my career coming out of school, I got into Apple's finance development rotational program. So I got to have 9 different jobs across different functions, a finance perspective, but supporting these different functions over the course of 2 years, and I'm making their business cases. And so when I had my first exposure to HR, it was for the business partner for HR who had left. And my first impression was, whoa, all the data. At the time I was in corporate finance, and I knew from some experiences that it can be funding from guys like I was without data, right? It's, I need this recruiter. Okay, well, show me the capacity model. Show me the ROI on this investment. What do we get? And so that was my initial impression, and partly what struck my interest in the function. In terms of switching from finance to HR, I had a lot of learning to do. I was really a corporate finance guy before, and that role, you live in sort of an ivory tower, and it's intentional that way because you are setting budget targets, you're looking at numbers. You don't want to be influenced by things that aren't black and white and data, right? Some of the early feedback I used to get when I was in finance was, hey man, I get to just set these targets, but you really should get closer to the business so you can understand the impact of cutting those heads and doing this and doing that. And yeah, I wish I could talk to those folks now, because I really did exactly that. So what was difficult for me in the transition was really like turning up the empathy. I mean, literally things like using more emojis, changing my speaking style. It used to be very like concise, to the point. It's really important to listen and to understand and to elaborate and expand and explain. So a lot of the communication stuff was really, my first few years, really intent on learning to speak like an HR person. Probably the biggest learning curve for me. What was easy was drawing the connections between people practices and business strategy. So having had that other role where I got the landscape of all the different functions, and I got to sit in some of these executive team planning meetings, I had a pretty good sense for what the company was trying to do. And so drawing the connections between that and the people strategy, I felt like I was in a good position to do from day one.
That's really fine. I'm thinking about that. Okay, you give me one example there of how to talk like an HR person. How else would you describe talking like an HR person? Because I'm kind of curious what the audience, that y'all can chime in out there, by the way, in the chat and let me know what y'all think. But I'd love to hear you, like, what are some other ways you describe? I heard emojis in there. I heard like listening before you speak. Anything else you'd use to describe the tone of an HR person or something else? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, internal comms was a big one and another area of learning for me, right? I can't adopt my own style if I'm speaking on behalf of the company. So really paying attention to the tone and the brand and the voice and how we do things like write up our core values on the website, or give an all hands announcement or a general announcement in Slack, and making sure that's consistent, because that consistency is really important.
I'm thinking about one of my very early HR jobs. I was very direct. It's just my style. And my leader said, I sent her something to review. She said, it needs more. Said, more what? Like more data, more evidence, like no more fluff. Like,
yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So I had to learn early on she called it the fluff and stuff, but she's like, that just little bit there, it's like the grease in the gears, and it matters. And so I learned the same thing.
One other small example, I used to furrow my brow a lot like this. You're having a sensitive HR conversation when you look like this, right?
Yes.
So things, posture is another one. Like listening, the posture of listening is lean back, receiving. It's a lot of these like behavioral and personal cues that you kind of pick up on over time.
What's interesting to me is that didn't make you less of a detailed person. Mm-hmm. That didn't make you less of an analytical thinker, but you use that analytical thinking to say, okay, I'm going to observe what are the behaviors, what are the motions, what are the like reactions, all those things, and apply that to how do I treat this the same way and approach this. Like, so that to me is interesting. You use that approach to change your style because you knew it would be effective overall. So that's really cool. Okay. So let's continue down this path. So one thing that we hear from people in this audience right here on a regular basis is, listen, I'm trying to do all this good stuff. I'm trying to build a relationship with my CFO. I'm trying to have a good partnership so that we can get budget when we need it, so we can get things through. And they struggle with that. part of what you said a minute ago. Like they don't have good data. So they show up and it's like, oh, they told me no. And I don't know how to overcome that. So talk to those leaders right now that don't really have a good starting relationship. Then we'll go farther down the path for people that maybe have one, but need to build on that. So let's start at the beginning. How do they start building the bridge?
Yeah. So the best HR people that I know are folks who are business people first and HR people second, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
When it comes to interfacing with your CFO, CFOs hate surprises. And there's ways that you can present yourself and present your data to help with that. So I think a lot of folks, when they're first diving into the idea of workforce analytics and reporting, get overwhelmed because there's so much stuff that you can report on. Starting really simple, like even showing a trend line of headcount and just beating the drum and showing that over time, so that when there is a spike, they're used to seeing that format. You can really the change that we're seeing in the graph. I usually suggest pick a handful of KPIs that you can accurately measure. That's really important. It undermines your credibility, like having the wrong data. So make sure that you're confident in what you're showing, even if that means showing less, and just get into a cadence of reporting on those things consistently. The other piece is the CFO is going to be thinking about costs. They're going to be thinking about numbers. But good CFOs recognize the power of the HR organization, and they recognize that there is a whole nother story, human story, below the numbers that they're not aware of. So I love showing a chart, showing how the data moved, and then overlaying a little dialogue box to say, here's what happened on the ground, and here's how we're seeing it in the data. Back when I was at Google, I worked on a capital markets team. And every once in a while, because we were trading such large volumes, these big banks would send their top economists. And they would come in with a spiral-bound printed notebook. And this notebook was the simplest notebook ever. It would be one chart, very easy to read chart, one takeaway. One chart, one takeaway. So I've tried to adopt kind of that piece. Like, here's the data, here's what's happening that explains the data. And I think HR is really well positioned to provide that context to the finance organization.
I think they're well positioned to do it. I don't know that many of them had that training or that experience like you that said, hey, this is how it's done best. So I love that you're calling out, like, I believe in you. Okay, all of you out there, we believe in you, but you've got to actually put some rigor behind this. And I love that you specifically said share less. If all you have are 2 or 3 good metrics, share less, but share the right ones and share them correctly, right? Be consistent about that. So I think it's a great call out too, because sometimes you get pressured. You read here's the top 10 metrics, and you go try to pull all that and share all that, and you're going to overwhelm them and yourself. Yep. Start with some key things.
Sometimes, Ben, especially if I started a new company and they have really a low foundation for their data, I'll still show the scorecard with that thing in there, and I'll gray out the row saying, we don't have this yet in a reliable format. We're working on it. Here's when we'll be able to report on this thing. So even that is helpful. It's sort of like compliance. If you ever get in trouble with an OFCCP, they just want to know that you have a plan to get there if you don't currently have the ability to prove that you're there. So I think that's another takeaway.
Just progress over perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So that you get some really good pieces of advice for someone just starting out building that relationship. And I think some of the things still apply for someone trying to build on that. I imagine you'll say, hey, you've got those metrics, take it further, build some relationships with other stakeholders so you're getting their metrics. Like, I'm taking some guesses here, but talk about that a little bit about, okay, we've got a connection there, but maybe we have to push something through and we're going to need to build our first business case. We've never done that, or something else. We need to have a stronger relationship there. How can they start building on that relationship if there's already a foundation?
Yeah. So going back to CFOs hating surprises, if I need from finance, I am telegraphing that early and often before I come with the ask, right? So setting up a recurring one-on-one with your finance partner is definitely something that if you don't have, do that. But let them know in advance, like, hey, here's what I'm starting to see. Like, I'm starting to worry a little bit about attrition. Like, this latest news, it's not good news. We're going to watch this metric closely. If we see that, I'm going to come to you with a recruiter ask. So you're kind of setting the table for what you're expecting, so that if that happens, they're not surprised by the funding ask. And even in the background, they might be setting aside some budget or something along those lines in case it does happen. So that sort of, if you listen to like Jerome Powell or any of these Fed chairmen speak, it's very boring, right? They'll give the same speech with like a slight tweak to the words, and it will cause the markets to move. But that's kind of how you want to be. You want to be consistent and telegraph and be intentional about the things you're asking for.
Okay. I really like that avoiding surprises piece. Last year, you don't know this, but for the audience, if you were here last year, everyone, the theme was moving from reactive to proactive. And that's a big part of it. It sounds like it's not just planning ahead for your own influence and impact within HR, but also for those stakeholders like finance and others that you have to partner with. We need to be working with them as well proactively. They don't want to be surprised. No one wants to be, right? Usually it's not a happy surprise. Hey, we found lots of money that we can give you for your extra budget. That doesn't ever happen in the business world. It's always like, oh, we underestimated that, or the cost overran here, and they've got to make those things right. So I really like that part.
Ben, I have one other thought for your audience, especially when it comes to recruiting capacity. One of the mistakes that I see folks make, finance folks in particular, is they will say, oh, we have this many recruiters, we can hire this many people, we're good. It is very important to add a buffer to your recruiting capacity. And the way I would explain that to the finance team is that if we are a little over capacity, sure, it costs a little bit of money. If we are a little under capacity and attrition spikes, this is a 6-month problem. We've got to go find the recruiter. We've got to train the recruiter. The recruiter has to open the role, find the candidate, and that candidate has to start. That's a 4 to 6 month endeavor. And we can't afford the vacancy duration and the business impact that will have. So, in my models, I always added 15%, and I was really transparent about doing that. You don't want to pad numbers and then they challenge you on it. And then you say, oh, but I put a little bit of buffer in there. But just making that case where you take it for granted until something happens and then you're behind. And so, that is one thing I'd recommend is really get ahead of recruiting capacity and build in a little bit of buffer and explain why you're doing that.
I like the example, and I've been the one who was hired after the fact to come and try to speed up things. Yeah. Hey, we need these positions filled. It was actually last week before you started. So chop, get on it. And that's not a winning situation, because you're going to cut corners everywhere you can. Hiring managers are going to just go for the quick answer versus the best answer and all those things. So good call out there. Okay. One last thing I wanted to ask you that really ties into the theme this year is the future of work is human. Right? There's all kinds of things happening around AI and all the cool stuff there, but you've given some really good examples today of how that connection with other people is how things get done, about how showing up with a little bit of creativity, thinking around the corner, some of those things that humans do well matters. What does it mean to you when I say the future of work is human?
Yeah, I mean, the AI stuff is so fun to watch. I see a lot of parallels between where HR was 10 years ago, where we were really just starting to adopt a data-driven approach to HR. Mm-hmm. This is the next wave. It's using AI to make ourselves better. I think about we talked a little bit about credibility and it being important that your data was accurate. There's a parallel here in AI, right? If your model is going to give the wrong answer 1 time out of 20, that's not okay. You're going to ruin your credibility if every 20 times you're wrong. So at the moment, the only way to get really certainty around these answers is to have that human layer at the end. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where we're at today and why that human layer is important. You can imagine a future where that error rate becomes 99.99%. That still doesn't eliminate the human, especially in our function, because the person-to-person connection and the ability to demonstrate empathy and to delicately deliver these messages and respond on a dime. Folks react differently when they're talking to a robot versus when they're talking to a real person. And so I think AI is going to revolutionize everything. I think our function is always going to have a spot in these companies. And where I'm seeing use cases today that are super valuable, we have a lot of work in HR, particularly in people operations, recruiting operations, recruiting that is the way I describe it is if you're putting your headphones on because you don't need your full brain to do the work, like that should be the flag for you that maybe we can build something to automate that part. And so I see a future where our recruiters are spending more and more of their time on the strategic pieces and less coding up their handwritten notes to something that will fit into the CRM and assigning manual tags and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
I like the headphone example there, that metaphor. I always go with like I said, every nerd has to create a 2x2 grid of something. And so mine is like, when it's very process focused and very repetitive, that's the stuff we automate. If it's very human focused or novel and different, more variable, that's when one of us has to step in because it's really hard to train an AI tool or algorithm to solve for those things. So I like the headphone though. That's a very good example of how we're sort of running on autopilot anyway. And we can hand that off and spend invest some other time, not spend it, but invest it into those human relationships that you've talked about a couple of times here. Okay. This has been so much fun, Shane. So if someone wants to connect with you, wants to follow you, see all the cool space stuff you're posting about on LinkedIn, what's the best way for them to do that?
Find me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect. And yeah, Ben, thank you so much for having me. I hope you guys have a great time at the rest of HR Summer School.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate the insight here. And for all of you out there listening in, some good takeaways on how to build those relationships. Don't surprise your finance partners across the aisle, and other good things from this conversation. Stay tuned for more Summer School coming right up. Okay, George, that was fun for me to have that conversation with him. And I was actually texting you comments from the audience during that. There were so many good ones. Did you hear anything in there that you love? I saw you actually posted the comments too.
Yeah, it reminds me of a previous conversation. I think I put my CEO hat on for just a quick second because I understand, coming from his background, it was always, for me, it was a disconnect. The most important hire for me in any business that I ever am a part of is somebody that is smarter than me and can handle finances. The gap that I struggled with early on in the business as a person that loved people and the people were our purpose beyond business, right? Was the CFO, was a financial person, because they thought business strategy, how to keep the business alive, and I thought how to keep the people alive, right? And so I was like, we need to spend money, we need to take care of our people. And it wasn't until I realized, like, one of the most strategic, and I'll use HR because this is where we are now, one of the most strategic HR leaders, what I think is strategic about HR leaders and what we should move towards is, and what I love and what I've learned about HR is that we don't ask, what do our employees need? We ask, what do our employees need for their business to succeed, right? It's not about what our employees need. It's what do our employees need so our business can succeed? It's a different language and a different mindset. And that's a little bit of what I took away from Shane. Is it almost goes back to what I used to say, is not what you say, but it's how you say it. Like, really being able to communicate effectively. The most strategic HR leaders don't ask, what do our employees need? They ask, what do our employees need so our business can succeed? We start having those conversations and the CFO ears open up a little bit different because in every business challenge is ultimately a people challenge in disguise. Right. It's how can we grow people? How can we find the right people? How do we connect our people? How do we engage our people? And so having that business strategy, HR strategy connection is an important and vital piece.
All right. Goodness. Okay. So this next one's going to be a great segue from there. All right. This next conversation with Mike Bollinger from Cornerstone, because he and I talk about the other side, the other aisle, right? I was talking about like finance, HR, opposite sides of the aisle. We also have our friends on the technology side, and that's becoming more and more blended at some companies with the things we're doing in HR, whether it's because AI is changing work or because we're having to use these tools ourselves. And so we'll jump in with Mike Bollinger from Cornerstone. Again, someone else that I love talking to. I always learn something from Mike, and I've known him for a long time, and every new conversation is full of new insight. So let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to Thursday of HR Summer School. We've been covering so much good ground here this week, and today's our last day. It's hard to believe, but we are not going to shortcut you. We've got lots of great ideas and content coming, including this next conversation with a good friend of mine, Mike Bollinger from the team at Cornerstone. Mike, welcome, my friend. Glad you're here.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, man. Summer school. I love it.
You know what? You and I are two guys who could probably always use a little more summer school. And so glad that you're here with us. We're going to get into some good things around how HR leaders are interacting more with their counterparts across the aisle, not the CFO actually, but the CIO. We're going to talk about some of those things today. We're going to talk about how we can help build bridges across that and connect there and really see each other's perspectives. It's going to be a good conversation. But before we get into that, take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please.
So there's a running joke in that I'm Mike Bollinger, Global Vice President of Strategic Initiatives. And the joke is that means I do stuff. But a lot of things that I've done at Cornerstone, I've had 4 or 5 different jobs at Cornerstone in a very unique set of circumstances. I started out, founded our thought leadership team and our value team. So we could talk about CFOs, but maybe we'll do that in the next summer school. But then I started our Cornerstone People Research Lab. I ran a product team for a while, and I worked directly for our Chief Marketing Officer again. And Ben, as you well know, we've done a lot of research together. My background is really, I started out in IT, and I actually started out to be a finance guy, but ran into technology and loved it and started in IT. I'm a former CIO of a very large school district. And then prior to that, I did a couple tours of duty each at both SAP and Oracle, made a little money every time I went back and forth. But Cornerstone fills my bucket when it comes to making people better at what they do.
You don't know this, but my wife's favorite story she used to read to her third graders was "Have you filled a bucket today?" I think is the one about filling your bucket. So where that phrase comes from, that was the book that she read to her kids every year. So that holds a lot of special meaning for the Eubanks family. So that's what you use.
I love it. I love it. Please do.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So you and the team have been working with us on some research around this workforce readiness topic. It's been a core focus for the team recently. And part of that means that we have to be thinking about bringing CIOs, technology leaders, and the HR side of the house together. Right? There's been some stories in the news about some of these interesting companies that are trying to combine those roles, which is a unique sort of flavor of that. Talk about that intersection and why that matters today.
So there's a couple of three things that are going on there. So bear with me. I'll land the plane, I promise. One of the things that we know is that the budgets have moved from HRIT in many cases over to IT. So depending on whose research you ask, 50% of the budget is now moved over where IT controls it. That's one. The second one is over the course of several years, with all good intent, HR has created a kind of a Frankenstack by accident in terms of the average portfolio can be anywhere from 15 to 33 systems to accomplish the HRIT environment. What happened was in this era of taking a hard look at where is AI going to automate and those things, which is not new, but it's emphasized now. CIO opened up the book and went, "What are you doing over there? 23 systems? That's a lot. Let's talk about that." And so that is the move to IT becoming a part of the HR initiative. With that said, the accelerant in this, if you think of accelerant as a fire starter, the accelerant in this is truly AI. So now not only has IT become a participating member in the HR strategy when it comes to the technology part, but they've also become now part of a buying committee, if you will. And that means that the CHRO and the CIO need to be on the same page in terms of what the initiative will accomplish when they go to buy the ELT with their buying decisions.
Okay. So I would imagine there are some people who are hearing that right now in the conversation or in the audience out there, and they're thinking, okay, I'm either living this, or we've been hearing some rumblings about this, or this is what we're living out right now. And maybe they realize that they don't actually have a good relationship with that IT leader, right? They haven't taken the time to build that. Like I kind of made a joke earlier. We had a session earlier in summer school around building that CFO relationship and rapport and connection. And we've thought about that as the forefront. And now this has got to also be one of those connections. So as this former CIO yourself, how would you recommend someone in HR start building a bridge, start building a relationship, starting to connect there so that they can tap into that when it's time versus trying to build it as they're running along the way? Does that make sense?
It does. And I think one of the things that we know is that actually you'd be surprised that your CIO does understand some of the pressures when it comes to the people. As a matter of fact, most of the research and most of my conversations tell me the CIOs are more likely than any other part of the C-suite to see upskilling employees as part of a core initiative that they need to have. And it's literally driven by the pressures they have with their own technology requirements. That's one thing. The second thing to understand is that your CIO wants to support your initiatives, but we're thinking about it from an HR perspective. We're thinking about it from leadership pipeline and making sure we have the right people in the chair. And we're developing a data-driven strategy where we link performance and business outcomes to workforce agility and leadership resources. Well, at the same time, though, your CIO is thinking about, how do I deliver operational excellence? How do I keep a secure aspect associated with this portfolio? How do I prioritize my governance and stability over the latest thing that the HR technology stack wants to bring to bear? So from the classic perspective, that's an important thing for you to recognize, which is your CIO in many cases is thinking in a governance kind of a perspective. So when you come to them with your initiative or with your issues and those kinds of things, they're thinking about it from a data privacy and a governance perspective. And you want to be really mindful of that and make that part of your conversation with them. It's classic human behavior 101. Be an active listener and learn about the folks that you're working with, right?
I have to tell you though, your personality strikes me as very different than a lot of the other technology leaders that I've met in the past. I don't know if they're like a stereotypical, like engineering kind of technology mindset or what, or if it's just a special thing, special sauce for Mike Bollinger or not. But you're like, the way you're talking about it is so open. And in the past, it was like, when I had those conversations with leaders, sometimes it was closed off. Sometimes it felt like they were trying to hide something or trying to keep something close. Maybe it was politics or something else. But you're like, we've both got to be sharing if we're going to get the best results for the business. Ultimately, we can't be closed off and have our own little kingdom and everyone win at the end of the day. So we've got to be able to do that sort of navigation part. And I know that's some organizations that's easier said than done overall.
That's true. But recognize that a CIO and a CTO, sometimes, most of the time, it's the same role. So the CIO side of the brain is focused on this governance and this protection and the security, and with all the things that are going on in the industry, they're thinking about that. But they're also thinking about it from a CTO innovative perspective. So at the end of the day, you have to go to the executive team with a cohesive plan on what it is that you're going to do with people. And I remember when I was a CIO, early on, I got some coaching and it said, there's two things you don't mess with. Don't mess with telephones, and I'm dating myself, and don't mess with paychecks. Don't mess with people, right? And CIOs are very mindful of that. So we haven't gotten to the AI part of it, which is the next part of this conversation, but they're very mindful of that. So if you come to them with a compelling case and a business outcome that fits into that portfolio thinking and that secure thinking, then you're ahead of the game. And remember, they have the same people pressures that you're thinking about very specifically to their organization, finding the right people, moving them around, doing the promotion, keeping people in chair. All the things that we think about, they think about too. There's a shared mission there.
So you teed us up on the AI piece there. I was going to ask you a very specific question to open this up for us, right? I was talking to a group of CHROs at an event recently, and we were talking about some of the stories around agentic AI and the things that's possible. And one of the leaders said that they had a realization as a leadership team that they have lots of individual contributors in their business who don't have any of the skills of managing others, managing work, delegating, all those things. And yet they're putting tools in their hands that they now have to train, they have to manage, they have to give feedback to and make sure that it's correct and accurate. And I thought of you in our conversations we've had in the past around, we put people in manager roles that aren't ready for it, that aren't equipped for it. And we're doing this now, it feels like at scale, putting these agents out into the workplace and expecting employees to suddenly know how to manage, even if it's not a person, manage a thing when they've not had that experience in the past. Has that occurred to you, or what are your thoughts on that when you hear that?
Oh, there's a lot mixed up in there. So I'll back up just a second to they have it in their hands and they have to do something with it. One of the pieces of research, and it's out there and we could get it to your group if you like, but there's this notion of shadow AI. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what happened over the last year is companies would say, go use AI, and they wouldn't give people a lot of support in terms of what that actually meant. And so people are out there using it, right? Remember in the old days when we said, we can't have people on social media while they're at work, and they just did that anyway? Same thing is happening with AI. So there's this shadow AI where people are using it but aren't necessarily talking about it. And that's a fail for the IT department as well as for the HR department, because we want to capture the goodness on what they're finding, right? Mm-hmm. They're doing things that we want to capture. So that's one. The second thing is there's this, we talked about the kids, so I'm going to use a Dr. Doolittle reference, a push me, pull you going on with HR and IT around who controls the AI high ground. Is it the governance and making sure that we have the right things in place? Is it the training? And I'm here to tell you, it's not one or the other. It has to be both, because there's behavioral things that HR can help you with. And from an IT perspective, they can help us in HR with some of the very specific requirements. So those are two things that are going on, full stop. Last thing is AI is about, in many cases, it's about being assistive. In the skills research that we do, Cornerstone has some very significant, massive labor market data. We found what I call the 50-50. You'd be surprised that human skills, what you might call soft skills, you, HR, our audience would call soft skills, human skills are as much demand, if not more. And what we found in the research is, for instance, nurses, customer service agents, people that you would think of as human oriented need more AI skills, full stop. But AI people who are doing work with AI need more human skills because we're thinking about communication, storytelling, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So HR and IT have a shared mission when it comes to AI, not just who owns it, but how do they develop it in a way that moves the entire business forward.
That is such an intriguing piece of that, right? You mentioned the high ground and that picture in my head of who is battling for control of this, because if we go ahead and go with it, listen, the future is moving that way. There's going to be more investment into those things. Lots of companies, right or wrong, are laying off people in order to invest in AI. That means it's going to be a bigger focus, but someone's got to be in control of that. And I think the unique challenge is, as you said, a lot of companies are like, hey, here's some stuff. Good luck. And then you see the data come back in. Oh, well, they invested all this money and there were no results. There was no ROI.
There were no results. That's a problem. Yeah.
And there may be results that people are keeping close to the vest because they're worried about their jobs, or there may be no results because it was so unstructured. And so the companies that I see winning with this are doing it more openly. They're sharing together. They're saying, hey, let's do a team like mini hackathon with AI and figure out what can we build that would solve a problem that all of us have. So we're all leveling up as a result of using this, versus just saying, you all go do something and we'll see if anything comes of it. And that sort of thing helps to change the narrative from this private thing, this negative thing, this weird thing that we're not sure about, to a shared human experience. And that's part of the reason that we themed summer school this year as the future of work is human. Is all the AI things are not going away. But as you said, like, we need more of those human skills woven into the work. The more that things get automated, the more the human skills start to matter, because you're not automating those pieces of showing empathy for other people and creating new ideas and being curious and asking questions. You can't automate those parts of the work away. We still need people to do them, and probably now more than ever.
So one of the things that we think about, and I'm going to quote Ethan Mollick. I know you know who he is, but others, go look him up. He's got great stuff. One of the things he says is AI is not coming to take your job, but people with AI are coming to take the jobs from people without AI. Okay, full stop. So there's this notion of, and it's very much an IT component that HR needs to embrace, called build, buy, borrow, or bot, which is, do I develop people? Do I acquire them through recruiting? Do I use a contingent workforce, or do I automate? And actually, I think that's flipped around. I do some workshops where I talk about, you want to look at bot first before you make the other 4 decisions in your planning. Now, nobody's going to have their job completely automated out of existence. I believe that very firmly. But parts of the job are going to. That's a classic productivity lift. And if you have a good set of data by which you can identify which parts of the roles might be automatable so that you can free people up to do the other things and develop to those things, that's a conversation that your IT department is more than willing to have. So think about it from that perspective as well, that it's change management, but they need your help in that, because that's not their basic skill set. Their basic skill set is on the other side. You're only going to be able to do this if you both bring your strengths to the table.
Yes. Okay. It's like, I'm going to quote another person back at you. You gave me Ethan Mollick. I'll give you Gay Hendricks. The book Big Leap says everyone needs to find their zone of genius, right? And play in that zone of genius. You do it better than everybody else. Lean into that.
Yeah. And if you do, it'll fill your bucket.
There you go. Okay, we came full circle, Mike. Look at you. All right, I want to give you one last chance to talk about this. I mentioned a minute ago, then didn't actually ask you about it, which is my bad. So I talked about our theme this year for summer school is the future of work is human. I gave you a little bit of like the thinking behind why that is. But what do you think? What do you think of when you hear that term, the future of work is human?
So look, I've been around this a long time. Ben knows I'm a grandpa. I got grandkids that are taller than I am. I truly believe in the human element. And Everything that we do and everything that we've done over the years has always been a level up. And this is one more level up. Now, what will human look like? Well, we know from our data that human skills are actually more in demand because our data shows recruiting elements. It shows what people represent on resumes, all in a very automatable and bias-free way, full stop. But that massive data tells us that the human skills, things like just simple things like communication, active listening, data storytelling, all those kinds of skills are 2 to 3 times more in demand and being asked for than the standard technical skills, even though your Gen Zs are being told, well, you got to have those technical skills. That leveling is going to be even more and more appropriate. Depending who you ask, the jobs are changing, full stop, no dispute. But the need for those additional human skills and being able to communicate, to co-work with AI, to create new initiatives, to be more innovative, those are not AI things, those are human things. And so what AI has done when I think of the future of work is it's freed us up to be really innovative, to do the things that we've always been meaning to do, but because of the day-to-day grind of getting some of the basics out of the way, we never got to. That's one. That's the innovative side. The other one is there needs to be a human AI interaction. Remember the old reporting, right? It was diagnostic and descriptive and predictive and then prescriptive, right? And we never got to prescriptive. Why? Because at the predictive, there were 3 or 4 potential outcomes, but at some point, somebody had to make a decision. That's the other part of the future of work is you're going to be much more well-informed, but you still got to make those decisions and live and die by those decisions. And candidly, that's the exciting part of the job. And for us in HR, best time ever, because now you can start working on those initiatives you've tried to for years.
Oh my goodness. That's a great way to wrap that one up. Such a good call out there. And I forget sometimes the wealth of data that y'all are sitting on with the platform there to be able to see into the labor market and some of those sorts of things. That one is the most data-based answer anyone has given to that question so far.
We ingest 28 terabytes a day. That's a lot.
I know. You capture all of those things so you can give a very real picture. This isn't a 10-year-old perspective on things. This isn't up to date. This is what's happening right now as we see it. So that sort of thing to me is wild. So for all the audience out there, if you want to connect with Mike, I'll make sure and get your LinkedIn profile link in here, as well as a link to the Cornerstone website where you can go and check out some of the research. I'll have to drop the link to the one that we just worked on together because we really went deep into some of the
dude, it was good stuff
changing around this. And there's so much happening. Work is moving faster than ever before. And as you all heard from Mike right there, we have the opportunity to partner with our friends across the side of the aisle, right? One more aisle we're reaching across to, and to create better outcomes for our people, for the business, and use these tools as one of the levers to help do that. Thank you again, Mike, for joining us. I appreciate you, friend. All right, come back. George, I love watching you in the chat with people because you're like, can't restrain yourself from contributing, even though you're off camera. You're still like, I got to get in here.
My biggest weakness is that I write a book for every, like, it's just like I'm acting like I'm talking, right? And so it's like a continuation of, hey, I want to give you 2 or 3 things versus, hey, I'm gonna drop one, I'm gonna drop one, I'm gonna drop one. So yes, it's the conversations are great, especially reflecting on the talent, and a lot of this is like hitting home to me. I have not. This is my first time hearing the session. I didn't get to pre-listen to all these different things at all, and so it's very eye-opening, but it's also reminiscent to a lot of things that happened when I was on the other side of the table as a CEO, owner, operator, and I'm looking at this potential, and I'm realizing potential is everywhere. And the one thing is not as opportunity, and great organizations learn how to connect those two. Where there's potential and opportunity. And I've used that analogy all the time. Like a piano is just a piano unless you use it, right? It does nothing for your room outside of looking beautiful. But it's only going to play if you use it. And so you can fully get that potential when opportunity and potential really meets together, and realize that employees don't rise to the level of their potential because leaders tell them to. they truly rise because leaders create opportunities for them to. And that's really what, when it comes to the talent, when it comes to being able to see those skills, talent often hides behind job titles, assumptions, and routines. And it's our job as leaders to really see those potentials and bring it out and connect them.
So you and I, when we did a piece of research 2 years ago with our friends at Adobe, one of the things we found was the best learning cultures do two things. And you just touched on it, right? The autonomy to grow and the opportunity to grow. Right? If you give them all kinds of choice and autonomy, but you're like, you have 6 minutes a week to build your skills, good luck, then you're not giving the opportunity. That combination is what makes sense. Really quickly, I want to call a couple of comments, and then we're going to jump into our conversation with Jim Morgan. So, Paula, I loved your comment earlier. The CFO gets you the money, and IT makes sure you have the best tech to do the work. I love that combination there in that one. Jalinda, you talked about the shared mission piece and how important that was. I loved when Mike said that too. We are all in this together. We're maybe accountable for different things slightly, but we all want the people to succeed and the business to succeed. And then Cindy called out that evergreen truth of we can train these technical skills, but the human skills make the difference. And the best hires we make and the best people we keep in the work we do, we talked about it earlier, right? We're not in this just to do things. We're in this to help make an impact. So great call outs there. So many good comments from the audience. Y'all keep them coming. We are flagging these suckers to give away a bunch of prizes and stuff as we go through here. Let's jump into the conversation with Jim Morgan and hear from him about a topic that I have very carefully never had us talk about on summer school. Here we go. Hey, so I'm sitting here with my friend Jim Morgan, and we're going to be talking today about something that, listen, Jim, we have never covered this. In all the 7 years of summer school, we've never covered this topic before because I have this sort of love-hate relationship with this topic, and I think I told you about that as I was preparing you for this. So it says a lot about you that I respect you enough to bring you in for this specific topic. We're going to talk about generations at work, some of the things around that, and I had a chance to see Jim speak on this not too long ago and was pleasantly surprised by what I heard, what I saw, and you handled the topic really well. So Jim, welcome. Glad you're here.
Thanks. It's my pleasure to be here. And I'm kind of surprised it's never come up, but I understand the love-hate relationship.
Yeah, well, we're going to get into that shortly. But before we do, would you take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I work for MRA, which is an employer association. We serve about 3,500 companies in the upper Midwest primarily. And I do a lot of work around talent strategies with companies, doing strategic planning, succession planning, retention strategies, and things like that. As you mentioned, I get to go out and do presentations and workshops on middle managers, demographics, AI, and generational differences. I'm getting to lead our AI initiative here at our place, which has been pretty educational for me. And best of all, I guess, I get to do 10 roundtables now with our members, CEOs, CFOs, and CHROs. So it's really a nice way. Every month I get to meet with these folks and kind of hear what's going on in their world. So I try to take all of that information and bring it back in a simplified 1 hour, 2 hour, 20-minute presentation so people can kind of understand what's going on out there.
So Jim, honestly, it sounds like you and I have very similar jobs. Like go and collect a bunch of stuff and then make sense of it and then share that back with people in something they can consume and take action on. So for me, that's the most fun part of my job. And I've seen you do this with the talent reports and the other things that y'all do for members, and you do a good job of it. So I enjoyed every single time that I've had a chance to plug in around that. So as we sort of set this up a minute ago, you get the chance to talk about a bunch of different topics. You just shared a little sampling of those, but one of those is generations at work. So tell me some of the things that are top of mind for you, some of the trends, things like that.
It's interesting. I think this is where your love-hate relationship comes from. I mean, every generation is different and you can't stereotype 70 million people. And so it's how do I kind of walk that line? But at the same time, the experiences that I went through from 0 to 25 years old are incredibly different than my kids and my grandkids. And so while every generation is different, they all went through some unique things together. And that begins to shape them. And as we have the conversation now about the generational differences, I mean, if you look at the current, say, younger two generations, the millennials and the Zs, and compare them to the Gen Xers and my baby boomers, the approach to work, technology, the way people like to be communicated with, authority, trust, all of those things are really different between the generations. And now they're all working together in the workplace like they always have. But Now you're trying to navigate some things that I think may be a little bit more complex than they've been in some of the past generations.
Okay. So I'm thinking about, I can't remember if I told you this, but one of my favorite web comics is not out there anymore. And I can't find this one. I really want to go and dig it up and use it in every presentation where I touch on this. But this manager is talking to the big boss and like, hey, did you figure out what's going on with your team? Well, I did a generational analysis and came up with these 3 points to do. And you're like, you have 3 people on your team. Why don't you just go ask them? And so like, that's the thing I feel like you're talking about there, where it's, yes, we want to rely on this like it's a way to avoid talking to people, or it's like, oh yeah, see, I knew they were that way, but it's just confirmation bias. And so I like that you're saying, yes, there are some similarities, some differences, but there are some things that make us different in who we are because of what we went through. Do you have any examples of that you can throw out that people can sort of say, okay, I get that. I understand that. Or you're stepping on my toes a little bit, Jim, because that's what I'm living out.
It's interesting. We just went through this one on, if I asked you, what time does the 8 o'clock meeting start? And you'd be like, okay, I'm from Wisconsin. Green Bay fan. I'm on Lombardi time. You're always 15 minutes early. Somebody else might say, well, I'm 5 minutes early. Somebody else might say, I get there at 8. Now there's be like 8-ish is what it means. And I dug into this one with some folks, and it's simple, but I think it gets to your point that when I was growing up, if I went to a movie before I had my driver's license, it was a major undertaking because I had to know where I was going to be dropped off, when I was going to be dropped off, where were my friends going to be, how do we meet, and then how do we all get picked up at the end of it. And so that required strategy, and everybody had to know where they were or you weren't coming home that night. And you fast forward to today is, I know I can ping you wherever you are. If I'm going to be 1 minute late, 5 minutes late, 10 minutes early, I can let you know spot on when I'm going to be there. And I think the change is that I grew up saying, be there 15 minutes early because then you don't miss your ride. Now my kids are like, hey, I'm 3 minutes out. I'm just going to be a couple minutes late, but I'll be there. Just wait for me. And our whole approach to time is different now because we know exactly what's going to happen when. And so we get mad at people when, well, you showed up, why were you there so early? Or why were you a couple of minutes late? They've lived their whole life that way because they just had access to some different information than I did. So I can still say I'd like you to be there, but they grew up just knowing, well, I can just text them and tell them I'm 2 minutes late. What's the big deal?
Okay. So I like those examples. So for the people listening in here, other than just a curiosity or an interesting topic, what does this mean for them as they're thinking about the people they're employing, whether it's the candidate side, the people that are already at their company?
Well, you got to know your people more than I think you ever had before. Now, generationally, I work with a lot of younger people. They're fantastic. They work hard. They work different. They work at 3 o'clock in the morning and send me information, and I answer it at 6 in the morning. But I gave them a project, whether they did it between 8 and 5 or whether they did it between midnight and 4. What difference does it make to me? I got the job. The job got done when I wanted the job to get done. And so that's good. They'll also tell me, you speak in paragraphs. The emails I get from you are in paragraphs. I need bullet points. Man, I got 12 years of Catholic education and writing and paragraphs and subjects and everything else.
I got to use it, darn it.
5 words or less. But it's their preference. They're used to getting things in like less than 256 characters, a video that's less than a minute long. I got to understand that because I'm losing them by the time I get through my first paragraph.
As you're talking through, like the recognition example a minute ago brought me back to, I did not realize this, but my kids, listen, when I got a grade in school, unless someone was handing the stack back and they saw what was on my paper, I didn't share those things with anybody. My kids who are in high school know the grades of all the people in their class because they all talk to each other. They all share. They now have access on their phones to what those grades are, and they'll be comparing things like, hey, I know this person scored the highest in the class, and I know that half the people were below this. And to me, that's weird, but to them, that's completely normal. And I would assume that same level of transparency and appetite for it is going to bleed into the workplace around things like pay and around things like policy decisions and things like that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Imagine you're a 55-year-old middle manager who's been at this for 30 years. You're not used to people sharing more than you want to know about their entire life. Working with people who have, like you said, they've probably put their salary out on Facebook. They've probably put their benefits out on Instagram. It's all out there. If they have mental health issues, my kids were an open book growing up with that. My generation, we didn't talk about that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you've got this group of people in there trying to figure out, wow, they're sharing this, they're sharing this, they're sharing this. And now it's my job to figure out, how do I help? How do I know them? Where do I not help? Where do I send them to somebody else? Everything's out there. I mean, you can find out just about anything. And I think as a result, they're like, well, everybody's going to find out anyway. I'm just going to share it. Whereas, again, my generation was like, ooh, that's quiet. That's hush. You don't talk about that.
So your big call out a minute ago when I said, what would you do with this information? What would you do knowing what you know now? Your big takeaway was you have to know your people. And I love that comment, because I think maybe what does bother me about the whole generation conversation is we try to say, well, all the people are that way. And one of my favorite ways to break that stereotype years ago, I had a friend of mine, we were born within 2 days of each other. We show up at a conference, we're doing a session on why generation stereotypes are kind of wonky. And he's like, a chain smoker, single guy, up till 2 a.m, like everything else. I'm like, I'm the one who's in bed by 8:30 because I'm tired. I don't smoke. I got 2 kids already, different life completely. But everybody would have said, well, based on your age, you're the same person essentially. Yeah. And so your call out there on know your people, that's what cuts through all the noise. It cuts through all of the other sorts of things. And I'll throw one more comment out at you that actually came up at our previous summer school event, not on generations necessarily, but a friend of mine, Heather Tinsley Fix, she actually works at AARP. And one of the quotes that I got from her years ago that still resonates with me today is stereotypes break down in proximity. So the first second you catch yourself thinking, well, those people, they must be that way. She's like, get close, because you'll realize that a lot of those things you think are true break down once you get close to someone else, start seeing who they really are.
Yeah, I think that's true. And the interesting thing in all of this, especially for an employer, is the whole world has become personalized. I mean, if my grocery store card knows when I'm out of milk, and Netflix can tell me the next 4 films I should watch, and Amazon knows more about me than my wife does, for heaven's sakes, that cuts across all the generations too. But so that's really important, that people are almost expecting that now, to say, okay, you need to know me at work too. What is it that I like? What don't I like? How do I like to work? How do I like to be recognized, like we talked before? You can't pigeonhole that into anything. And I'm just amazed at what's out there about me and what's right and what's wrong. But people have put 2 and 2 together and said, okay, well, this guy must like this and this. And sometimes it's right and sometimes it's wrong. And to your point, the human element of that is, well, if I talk to him for 3 minutes, I'll probably know the answer to all these questions.
Yes. Don't assume. We know where that gets you, and it's never a good place. So you mentioned the human thing there. And so that was the other question. I've asked, not all of our speakers this year, but many of them have asked about this, because I'm super curious to hear people's perspectives on it. You mentioned a minute ago at the beginning that you are leading the charge for AI in the business, right? Helping to think through what that means for MRA and how you're able to use this both internally and probably to support customers and clients and everything else. But at the same time, all the things you've talked about in the last 15 minutes with us here are about seeing the human, knowing the human, understanding the person. That's where you've come back to time and time again. So our theme this year for summer school is the future of work is human. And I'd love to hear your reaction to that statement.
Wow. With that, I think what's interesting, even with the AI stuff, and I mean, it could be anything, and it could destroy the world as we know it, or it could be the greatest thing ever in terms of going forward. I still think it's going to be the human part of it that's going to make it as effective and purposeful and useful as possible. And that's going to be the controlling part of AI, I think, is going to be the humans. Is how much do you expect, how fast do you expect this to go? How do you utilize it? Someone's still going to be making those types of decisions. And I think if you really stop and look at all those monster changes we've had, whether it's the printing press or COVID or working remotely or the internet, all of them still came back to humans. That's what's going to control what gets done, how it gets used. And so I think they become even more important than they've ever been before. And I get it. There may be robots doing all kinds of stuff at some point, and long after I'm gone, heaven knows where that may go. But So far, we've made it this long with an Earth that's been around for billions of years, and it's still the humans that are sort of running everything. So I just don't see that part changing. I don't know how you replace the human.
I think the audience already expected that from you. Hearing your first part today about the human part is so important. But I'm trying to come back and have that reinforced over and over again, because to me, it's really easy. I get again, the algorithms know me. They know that I'm curious about AI. So I get all the updates on all the studies. I get all the updates on all the new things that are happening, good and bad. And I see all these things. And if all of our friends, if all of you listening to us right now are seeing the same things, I'm like, we've got to come back to the most important thing. Start with the human. My recommendation when I'm talking to anybody around AI is start with your philosophy, start with your why, start with your purpose. Don't start with, let's just get more stuff done. Check. Because you'll get more things done, but are they the right things? Are they things that make people feel worse after you've done them? Are you starting to treat people more like they're disposable and transactional instead of the deeply valuable humans that they are? So I love hearing your take on that, because it connects back to some of the things that I know about you as a person, but I know about what y'all are doing for the companies you work with. And I know of the audience out there and how they see people. So thanks for indulging me on that one.
My pleasure. If I can make you happy, Ben, then it was all worth it.
It's just a good day for me. I'm just going to smile for the rest of the day. So we've covered some of these really good things. I want to ask you one more thing, if you don't mind. So I believe I heard you talk about at one of the sessions I was at recently, and if not, you can correct me, but you talked about some of the demographic changes that are happening in the workforce across the nation. Could you give us like the highlights reel on that and what that is? Because while it's not generational related, it is related to just the source of talent that we can access as employers. And it's not something, again, that we've talked about this year necessarily.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And no matter what I'm talking about, I almost always start with the demographic part of it. And I usually say, okay, I'm going to depress the heck out of you right now, but stay with me because it'll get better afterwards. But I think people need to understand a couple of things, and it's different in different areas. But overall, for the United States, we haven't hit break-even fertility rates in 49 of the last 50 years. So what does that mean? We need basically 2.1 children per female, and we haven't done that in 49 of the last 50 years. And not to get all scientific and whatever with you, but it's simply more people are dying than are being born, and that's it. You've got a baby boomer generation that's huge and is aging out, and so that's a big issue. You've got a Gen X that's pretty small and no way can replace all of those people. And then you throw in this whole immigration issue, and not to be political with it, but in the last 5 years, we've added about 23 million jobs. And in the last 5 years, we've hired about 24 million non-US born people. That's where the growth has come from. It's not like one job opened and it was filled by this person. But overall, if we hadn't had those additional 23 or 24 million people, we'd be 23 or 24 million people short. And so I think that's what folks have to look at in this bigger picture. There aren't people. And this is true in almost every country. And so how that plays in and what the role of AI is and robotics and all the rest of it, that's for HR folks. They've kind of figured this out, but you still have a lot of leadership teams that are saying, why can't you find me 25 new engineers? Then the HR people are like, because they don't exist. That's why I can't find them for you. People really have to focus and understand and see what their area looks like, because in some areas of the world or of the United States, Wisconsin is one of them. You get up to the northern half of Wisconsin and the young people are leaving and the older people are sticking around, and you can just sort of play out the consequences of that.
You see that in some countries like Japan, where they have so few people of working age now that they don't have enough to support the social systems, right, for the people who have now retired. And it changes even the makeup of jobs. Like there are now jobs there where you can just pay someone to come and just be a companion, because there aren't enough people around for you to have a social circle of friends, or you don't have kids or grandkids to come and visit you. So people can just hire someone to come and spend time with you. So that stuff is going to just play out. So thank you for bringing the doom and gloom. Appreciate that, because I didn't have to, but that stuff's real. And for those leaders out there, as you said, like that comes down to, at a fundamental level, you're being asked to find talent, and you're going to have to steal it from someone else, essentially, right? Or build it. And this takes time and planning, and most teams aren't ready for that. So thanks for letting us run the gamut today. Like this is
You
the
betcha.
potpourri session, like on Jeopardy, where it's like potpourri, a little bit of everything. That's what I felt like we got around to. So Jim, if someone wants to connect with you, wants to follow you, wants to just be in your circle because they can tell you're an amazing guy, what's the best way to do that?
I would say probably just on LinkedIn. It's Jim Morgan 1960. That'll give you an idea of my age. It's the same thing on X. So those would probably be two places that they could go to if they want to connect.
All right, perfect. I'll make sure and drop that into the chat here so you can all reach out, connect with Jim. Again, as you can tell, he covers a range of topics, all things relevant to all of us that care about people and the workplace. All things relevant to us who care about people in the workplace. I think that's everybody here today. So really quickly, great session, Jim. Grateful for you for sharing your insights there, for sharing your passion for this, for letting me tap you on the shoulder for like 15 different topics. If you couldn't tell, I was using that as my own personal like playground for ideas, like going through these different things together. That was fun. All right. So our next session is going to be with Zach Doms. He's with Achieve. They're friends of ours. We work together on different events and things like that. If you've ever been at some of the industry events in the space, you may have seen them around. And so I'm going to get this session with Zach queued up so that we can hear him and George talk about some of the opportunities that we have to communicate well, to lead well, and to create better results for our people. And now, here we go.
And I'm excited about this conversation and this session that we're going to have with a good friend of mine, Zach. We've known each other for a few years. It's great to be on this side of the table, Zach. Usually you're the one that's handling and the hosting, but it's great to have you, my friend. Tell the audience at HR Summer School a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, thank you so much, George. I'm really excited to be here. And yeah, it is kind of funny being on this side for myself as well, where I feel like I'm the one usually moderating and facilitating. So yeah, I feel very grateful and appreciative that I get this opportunity with you all and to be joined for your network for this big program. Yeah, Zach Doms, president of Achieve Engagement and good friends of the Lighthouse community and crew as well. We are a global HR people leader community, and we design all different types of learning experiences and events to help sharpen HR leaders' craft and best practices and stay ahead of the curve and continue making a bigger impact on the world of work. So excited to bring that purpose and alignment with what we're doing here today.
Yeah, you and I have a lot of synergy. As weird as that word sounds to me, I used to hate saying it, and now I'm saying it again. But we have a lot of passions together, especially when it comes to leadership and workplace culture. And really want to talk a little bit about this leadership paradox in regards to performance, in regards to transparency, and really the truth about healthy cultures. Before we dive into that, I want you to finish this sentence for me. With our theme this year being the future of work is human, I want to ask you, Zach, in this conversation that we're going to be having today, the future of work is human when, finish the sentence for me.
When we raise our ambition for it to be human. And I can expand on that a little bit. I think something that we've continuously seen, obviously, in the world of work and just headline media is this continuous trend of automate and AI our organizations more and more. And there's tons of ambitions for us to be AI powered and enabled. But we don't really have these ambitions and aspirations for our organizations to be more human. We don't really see that type of push within organizations when they're talking about their future. And I'm not anti-AI by any means. I'm all for it and I leverage it. I see a great purpose for it in the future of work. But I think the future of work is human when we start to raise the human ambition to that same level. Let's make human and the future of work being human a goal and an aspiration.
Yes, it's almost as diving into these conversations about the balance of AI and human and the humanity aspects of it, the skills that we should be preparing ourselves for, right? Like, how can we upskill ourselves and make ourselves, how can we make humanity more valuable in the world of technology? When I think about the leadership role and the employee's role, that guidance and that connection between the two, I recently had a conversation about rewards and performance speaking at a conference, and oftentimes organizations reward performance, right? While often overlooking damaging behaviors. How can leaders balance this ambition, as you talk about? How can we balance the high performing expectations with the behaviors needed to really sustain healthy cultures in a healthy organization and healthy people within those organizations.
Yeah, I think this is one of the largest tensions I think organizations forever have tried to manage and understand and navigate, right? Because we want to perform, we value high performance, and sometimes that performance pillar within kind of our organizations takes priority over all else, right? We've often heard some of those phrases of do whatever you need to do by any means necessary, right? Like we've heard those phrases within the workforce before. And one of the things that I would say, like, how do we start to balance this and create a high performing, but also a healthy culture is one, I think we need to also redefine or revisit how we define performance. Is performance defined for you as someone that just exceeds their goals and their expectations within their role, but they're allowed to damage the well-being and the relationships around them along the way? Is that how you perform? Like how you define performance? To me, that's not what a high performer is. Like a high performer to me, by definition, is someone that exceeds expectations while maintaining healthy relationships and a sense of well-being in their life. To me, that's a true high performer.
Yeah.
So I think having like behavior as a part of your definition for performance and not separate it from it is a key, I think, starting point for how you can, yes, support performance. That's really important, but also maintain a healthy culture.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is, what is kind of like your time frame and your outlook for performance? Are you just trying to perform for a quarter, or are you trying to perform at a high level year over year? And a lot of times when you're just hyper focused on performance, but you're allowing toxic behaviors, that toxic kind of performer to be alive, a lot of those organizations aren't able to actually sustain performance over the long term. So when I think about like the goal and the aspirations for an organization, our goal should be, we want to be a high performing organization for years to be into the future. And the way to sustain that is to build a culture that can support healthy performance over the long term. If you're having a performer that's damaging relationships, or they're damaging their own sense of well-being to reach a certain level of performance, that's not sustainable for either themselves. So they're going to perform for 3 months, 6 months, and then you're going to see that kind of tipping point. Or if they're damaging the relationships around them as they perform, now you're also losing the performance and the impact of everyone around them, which eventually there's kind of two things. One, you're bleeding out the back end. So all that performance that one individual is doing, you're not actually capitalizing on it because you're losing some of the impact through the loss of the engagement and performance of other people. But on top of that, when those people also disengage and they are lost, it actually creates more pressure on that performer, where then they start to actually also have their own issues in the long term. So I think that's two part. It's like, one, how do you define high performance? And does it include the behaviors that align with supporting a healthy culture? And then two, what is kind of like your payout window and your time frame that you're looking for? And if you're super short-sighted on the quarter-to-quarter performance type metrics, you're going to fall into some probably sustainability issues that don't support high performance over the long term. So I would be like, how do we build that balance so that we can have a highly performing, highly engaged workforce for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I love the defining what high performance look like, because for different industries, it may look different for different companies, right? For one, HR1 and being able to identify that looks different for a team of 15 or 20. It may look different from 200 employees to 10,000 employees. And so I think it's very critical. I think that's a good call out from you, Zach, to be able to identify what high performance looks like within your organization. But also, I would also add what healthy high performers look like, as you talked about the well-being, and make sure you're having healthy people that are going with that. That makes me think a lot about transparency, right? And the importance of transparency when it comes to performing and the expectations of that performance. Because it's one thing to have high productivity, somebody's getting their job done, but as you said, it impacts the other departments in a negative way. How does this really bring a big picture together? When it comes to transparency, then on that aspect, especially for not just performance, but let's look at all aspects of transparency. We're talking about the employee growth and what that looks like. We're talking about feedback and feed forward, as I like to say, for employees. We're talking about the development as organizations are changing and pay is not always theirs from a value standpoint from new candidates coming on to companies. They're saying, hey, what's my growth and development look like? I want transparency there. When it comes to radical transparency, where do we as leaders draw the line and be able to balance that when it comes to the employee growth, the feedback, the performance, and even career development aspects of work?
Yeah, this I feel like is a pretty tough question for a lot of companies. And I think there's maybe different layers or types of like areas of transparency that you'll really want to think about. I'm a big fan of transparency. And we also know new generations and a large percentage of the workforce today desire more transparency from their organizations when it comes to some of those key topics that you talked about. Pay transparency, growth transparency, career transparency, whatever it might be. Like people desire that because it helps them continuously be a little bit more empowered, more aware in how they fit into things, how their future aligns to certain things, and how they can make better decisions about their own career and their own life. So people desire this, and I'm all for it. I think there's an interesting line that I often think about that might not be the traditional line in ways people think about this. So first, I want to root ourselves in like, okay, if we are trying to support someone's growth, development, and just awareness within their own roles, like we talked about the toxic leader and they're damaging the relationships around them, or we have the employee that might not be performing well, there's a level of transparency and awareness that's required for that person to change their behavior. So I first think like the first gate to behavior change is often awareness building. So I would just think about like, how can you leverage transparency as a tool that helps someone change and build better behaviors, whether that's performing at a higher level, maybe behaving differently to support the people around them. So transparency is a powerful tool for behavior change. The other thing, like the line piece, like where do we draw the line? I think more about like the cultural, emotional aspects of the line. And like on one end, are you rooting your radical transparency from a place of love and support and growth and so forth for your people? Like, are you giving radical transparency to those individuals to support kind of their future from a loving, supportive way? Hey, I want you to thrive here. I want you to grow here. I want you to feel a sense of belonging here. So I'm going to provide you with this radical transparency so you become aware of your blind spots, aware of your growth projection, your future career possibilities here, how you fit into the pay structure across the rest of the organization. Like, is it coming from maybe like a rooted of like appreciation, aspiration, love, and support for your people? Or are you coming from like a radical transparency standpoint of like frustration, self-interest, and kind of like our own ego-driven decisions and things that we're trying to do? A lot of times as leaders, if they're becoming radically transparent with their people from that space, it can land as like an attack, or it can erode the relationship and trust. It's the same words in many ways between those two kind of sides of the line, but from what type of like values or place it's coming from, it can have a massively different impact. So I would think about like the line almost in that way. And then obviously I think just in terms of like more things, like if you're talking about pay transparency, for example, and what level of radical transparency should we lean when it comes in terms of like pay, there I think are bigger things to actually consider. There probably are elements of compliance and governmental laws and things like that you have to do and be transparent about. And then I think there's back to what we're talking about, which is like, what's your philosophy behind how you're being transparent about it? Is it coming from a place of love and support, or is it coming from a place of like anxiety, frustration, self-interest that is more driven for the company, I guess?
Yeah. In those conversations, especially when it comes to transparency, there's this battle a lot, and you'll see it a lot of times. For me, and I'll use myself as an example, I struggled very much when it came to anything that dealt with conflict or difficult conversations. Like having difficult conversations was not always a strength, and now it's really one of my favorite passions. I love difficult conversations. And so when we talk about the transparencies from this side of it, how much does it hinder, hurt, disrupt when we're not transparent in having those difficult conversations for the sake of having psychological safety and having that trust? How does false harmony quietly damage trust, innovation, performance over time?
Yeah. I'll give a more corporate answer to that, but I have like maybe a fun answer to that too that I'll start off with.
Please.
I always joke about this when it comes to like giving and receiving feedback and why it might be super uncomfortable, but extremely necessary. And I'm sure we can all think of an experience at some point in our lives this has happened to us. But it's all the like, do I have a booger hanging out of my nose scenario? Like, have you ever been and think about in those scenarios where if you're at a social gathering and you had a booger hanging out of your nose and you were talking to someone you trust, let's say George and I are having a conversation, but George is uncomfortable to tell me I have a booger hanging out of my nose because there's this harmony and it would be uncomfortable and it might make me feel embarrassed for a short amount of time. So he doesn't say anything, right? I continue to talk with other people around the room. I go to the bathroom and I see this entire time I have a booger hanging out. In that result of George not having this maybe uncomfortable short moment conversation of feedback with me, I have now felt probably a distrust with George. Like, oh, George isn't willing to give me or tell me when I don't realize I'm doing something that might cause me to be embarrassed or look dumb, or I might be doing something wrong, right? Like as a friend, I would want my friends to tell me that so I don't continue going through the rest of this networking event looking dumb in that scenario. So I think about like the same exact thing within our organizations. Like, are you letting your people perform in a way as if they have boogers hanging out of their nose because you're scared or uncomfortable to have a tough conversation with them that might be uncomfortable in the moment, but in the grand scheme of things, they'll appreciate it and actually trust you and say, hey, I think George actually has my back. That was a really weird moment. It sucked. I'm glad we did it. And now I know George is looking out for me. He's willing to have the uncomfortable conversation to support my performance and my growth. Yeah. And so I think that's like an interesting, fun way to look at it is like, look, it's a tough conversation. It's going to be uncomfortable. But in the long scheme of things, people tend to build trust in those difficult conversations because you work through something together that was aligned with their growth, their performance, and kind of what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. So the other thing I just want to add to this that I've also seen when you're not having these like conversations in order to maintain the harmony of the culture, it actually hurts high performers a lot. So you have maybe high performers who are doing a lot of the heavy lifting. They're on a team that's not being held accountable to the same standards or performing at their level. No one's having difficult conversations to pull them forward to align with the level of performance that this individual is operating from. So when high performers are working in that environment that maintains harmony, but people aren't stepping up to their level, high performers get disengaged really quick. They start to actually get a little bit annoyed with it. They're going, I want to grow. I want to work with people that are as driven as I am about making this type of impact, who can challenge me in my thinking. But right now I'm surrounded by a bunch of people that are really happy and in harmony with each other, but they're not kind of stepping up to raise my level of performance. Like if anything, I feel like I'm being pulled down. So I think that's the other piece to think about is one, like avoiding these conversations in general actually hurts trust and engagement in the long term. And having them actually amplifies the trust engagement of the team. And the second part of that is, you're actually going to disengage your actual high performers that are there right now by not raising the bar of the rest of the team to kind of operate from that level, which is really going to hurt you in that scenario.
Well, Zach, I love this conversation. As we wrap up, give me one practical leadership habit that will help an organization right now create the culture in which accountability, honesty, and belonging can kind of coexist, and then let everybody know where they can find and connect you.
Yeah. So I would say just one habit, back to what we talked about before, redefine or revisit your definition and philosophy of what high performance is? And can it include the behaviors of what we talked about, like accountability, honesty, and belonging, so it does coexist? And then we also try to think about maybe decision-making frameworks when it comes to leadership. So when you're making decisions, outline these core pillars that you value. For us, a lot of times it's culture, it's performance, it's retention. And ask yourself, does it achieve culture? Does it achieve performance? Does it achieve retention? And when you're designing or taking leadership behaviors, can you go through that step in that decision-making kind of discovery process to ensure it's aligned with those core values before you're actually implementing or taking action? So that would be my final tip for today. You can connect with us at achieveengagement.org. That's where we host all our community events and programs. You can learn more there. You can follow me on LinkedIn as well, as Zach Doms is my name on LinkedIn. And we work with the Lighthouse Group, so I'm sure you'll see our brands cross paths quite a bit.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for all the wisdom you shared here. And let's get back to the next session.
George, we're back at it. And I've got a special thing for you. No more booger performance in honor of Zach in that conversation with you. There we go.
Oh, man. So as he was talking, and I'm recapping in my head some of the conversations we had, I was like, no, I wonder if the booger is going to come out of this situation. And so in George fashion, if you caught it in the chat, I went ahead and yours truly being I went ahead and made an acronym for booger. And I'll shout it out real quickly for the second time, and I'll put it in the chat fully together. But number one, be present. Open the conversation. Open the conversation. The conversation you're avoiding is often the connection you're missing. Own your intentions. Get curious. Be curious about. Best leaders don't enter conversations looking to be right. They're looking to be understood and understanding your people as well. Encourage growth and then reinforce trust. Ben, I think the most important thing we can do when it comes to this, and I'll end the booger framework, if you will, in conversation and hand it over to you. But I'll end it in a serious matter that's, I guess, can be sticky or whatnot. But every team that I've been across or been on has a booger, right? It's the uncomfortable conversation that nobody wants to have. It's the issues everybody sees, but nobody wants to address. Every leader pretends it's not really there, right? The face, and they face it with courage, as he was talking about curiosity and care. But we as leaders, we have to be on the other side of every difficult conversation, because on the other side of that difficult conversation is a stronger relationship, it's deeper trust, it's a better team, it's the transparency we've been hearing a lot about this week. And I know somebody brought up Angela's day one conversation on that. The best leaders know this, is that if you want a healthy culture, you cannot avoid the booger.
All right. That's going to stick with me, George. All right. So we're going to go to this next one. We're going to hear from David Klein. We've heard from our great sponsors and partners this week. David is with Verified First, our last conversation with a partner for the event. And then we have one more conversation with Tyrese. Right now it's looking like we may go a little bit over. So we're trying to accelerate these little bits in between when George doesn't get hung up on boogers. And then we'll get to the end today, some announcements, some giveaways, other things, and our wrap up as usual. So let's jump into David Stein from Verified First and hear about some of the things, the creepy things that are happening with candidates right now and some of the things we can do about it. Here we go. Hey, everyone. So glad you're here with us at summer school. And I have had so much fun diving into a couple of different sessions this week around some of the interesting things. We'll call it interesting, not weird, and hiring. And David and I are going to talk about one of the things that many companies are dealing with and trying to figure out how to solve for. And it's just this overabundance of applicants that we're just trying to figure out how to sort through, trying to figure out what to do with. So I'm excited to dive into some of the things that David's seeing there when in his work at Verified First, and some of the opportunities we have as employers to see and understand and maybe even solve this problem to some degree. So David, welcome, man. Glad you're here.
Thanks, Ben. Really appreciate the invite.
Hey, before we get into some of the fun stuff we're talking about around candidate wackiness in the market, I'm just going to keep adding all kinds of fun words to describe it. Take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please.
Yeah, David Stein, I'm the VP of Sales at Verified First. We're a background screening provider, and we don't just do criminal background checks. We do a whole host, verifications, monitoring services, WOTC, I-9 services, drug screen, all that good stuff. I've been in the HR space my entire career, got into it right out of college. So pushing 25 years now in HR tech, worked in recruiting, and have been background screening for about 15 years. So dedicated my career to HR. I didn't think I was going to do that right out of college. I even did 1 year of internship at SBC, which is now AT&T and HR, and really loved it, and kind of got fortunate that I had an offer to get into HR right out of college and stuck with it and have enjoyed it ever since.
That's really fun. Well, I love that. There's not many of us that end up in it early on and stick in that. So that was my very first HR job too. My first job too was in HR right out of that. And that's what I wanted to do actually. So ended up there. What's something fun about you, David, that's not in your bio? Maybe
something fun about me. I have, I have 8-year-old twins, a boy and a girl. And so I do an awful lot of coaching with them, baseball and softball. And it's interesting to see the dynamics between the boys and the girls. It's the same age, and a lot of the kids are in the same classes at the different schools that they're at. So it's interesting to see that. And it's kind of a nice melding of the kids coming to different games and practices as well. My daughter helps my son helps with my daughter's practices. And it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy coaching. That's part of the reason I think I enjoy being a leader in my professional career. But I love every season just seeing the boys and seeing the girls, like they start here and they all end up getting a little bit better. There's some kids that they show up and they don't want to play. If I can just get them a little interested and get a little success along the way, you love seeing that. And just seeing the smiles on their faces, like at the end of the season pizza party, it's always that's to me is the highlight of the season.
There's probably a really interesting parallel between like the coaching progression you go through in a season and like some of the employee life cycle stuff. We could unpack that for a long time because I coach with youth sports. I have twins too, David. You did not know that, but I have twins. They're old. My girls are 15, so they are getting ready. They're driving now, which is a different kind of scary than what you're dealing with right now. So
I'm looking forward to them driving, but at the same time, I'm also thinking like the way that like self-driving cars are going, they might not ever get a driver's license.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. So really cool. Thanks for sharing that. I've loved learning some more about our guests here and what they're about. I know there are a lot of people in the audience right now that are probably like, hey, my kids are playing those sports. I'm also coaching. I'm the parent that like raises my hand when the coach looks like they're drowning and needs some help. So all the people out there are chiming in around that. So we want to talk today about one of these challenges that companies are dealing with. And you were telling me you were actually just at a conference and heard this come up over and over again around this inundation with resumes.
Yeah.
Talk about what you're hearing from employers around that right now.
Yeah. Massive amounts of resumes getting submitted. And it's not, economies always go into ebbs and flows. Is it a kind of buyer's or seller's market? Or is it more of a headhunter or a employer's market? I think right now what you're dealing with, though, is just because it's so easy to apply to some jobs. And with AI that's out there, there's like an avalanche of applications, and companies are really trying hard to figure out what's legit and what's not. And so there's the massive amounts of applications that are there, and how can an ATS that they have accurately disseminate the best candidates and filter through it. If you're hiring one person a month, not as big of a deal. If you're hiring 1,000 people in a month, it gets to be a big problem. But even if it's a small one, if you're hiring for one job, if I get 1,000 resumes, how do I find the best candidate that's in there? And that's something a lot of HR folks are concerned about right now.
Well, the other part to me, I think back to my times at small and mid-sized companies where I was recruiting. If I'm hiring one person a month, that one person can swing things a lot, right? And so I can't do it right every time. I don't have, don't worry, I can do this 90 more times this month and make up for that. I've got to do it right this first time. So I've got that pressure. There's
on that, like on a small business, a bad hire makes a larger impact than a bad hire at a big business. At a big business, it's about $17,000 per bad hire for kind of like a frontline employee. It's about $100,000 difference for for more of an executive role or higher level position. But at a small business, that cost actually doubles. It's about $34,000, the impact that a bad hire will make. So super important for small businesses.
Oh my goodness. Thanks. Oh, you're sharing the data. That's my love language. So any more of that we got as we go, David, I'm going to be thrilled about.
I'll try to find some.
Hey, bring what you got. So that's a real problem. And employers we're talking with are dealing with it, again, small, large, all over the place. They're struggling with this. It's always been a problem, but like you said, it's gotten so easy. I can just one click and apply to a bunch of jobs, or like we now have AI tools that will help us do that as candidates, which just makes it so much more difficult. So what can employers do about that? How do we cut through some of that noise and find the real signal instead of just feeling like we're drowning and saying, well, I'll just look at 10 of them and try to pick one because I don't know what to do with the other 900 in the stack.
Yeah. So a couple of different things with that. So there's on the one side of it is like, how can I verify that this person is who they say they are? There is a rush right now on individuals that are applying that aren't really individuals. It might be someone, and you see this a lot with folks, these deep fakes that are overseas, especially now with people that are working domestically or domestically that are working remotely, how frequent it is that you end up having people that are not in the country, that aren't legally allowed to work in the country, that are applying to jobs that are in the US. And with a couple forged documents, especially with 1099, it's not that hard to do that. People tapping with VPNs and whatnot. So that's one side of it. The other side of it, though, is that if they are, hey, it's just we have that many candidates. How do we go ahead and start to filter through this? So a lot of ATSs will have different filtering tools that you can utilize with that. So make sure that if you don't have an ATS, you might want to look at an ATS, what different filtering tools and metrics that you can use to determine if this person's skill set matches up with what we're looking for. Because like if you're getting 3 applications, it's not hard to read through a resume and hey, maybe even give all 3 candidates a call. If you're getting 300 applications for one job, you can't do all that. So you have to use different tools. So look at different AI tools as well. If your ATS doesn't have it, you can use Gemini, you can use Grok, you can use OpenAI. There's a whole Claude is a great tool as well that you can feed the resume into to see if it actually matches what the skill set that you think you need for that position. And it helps kind of whittle that down then and try to find a better, try to find the best candidates you want to start to move forward with.
Yeah, I worked with a company recently. We built a training around using Gemini for those kinds of use cases because all these HR leaders that I talk to, like, oh, I'm using it to draft new job descriptions or draft, all these things. Like, stop using it to create new stuff. We don't need more stuff floating around. Let's use it to analyze the things we already got in our to-do list. Yeah. So that's a great use case there. I'll bring you a piece of data back to you and then a piece of research I want to ask you about that just came out recently. So the first thing, we just finished our study. We just every single year, we asked over about 1,000 employers and talent leaders, like the audience listening to us today, what is the biggest problem trying to solve in hiring right now? And to no one's surprise, I think, is probably exactly what you would expect. The biggest problem is picking the best and most suitable candidate for the job. And so right along this conversation, it's narrowing that big funnel down to the right person and not getting the wrong one, not making the wrong decision, not getting caught flat-footed. So that's one. So backing that up, that's the absolute priority. There's a piece of research I saw just the other day that said they were looking at resume length in the past, right? When you and I started, how long was the resume supposed to be, David?
1 page.
1 page, right? You go to 2 pages and you're like, what's wrong with you? You better be a dang doctor or something else to have that much stuff. And so because of it's free for AI to just expand on content. Today, resumes are like 2, 3, 4 pages on average because AI makes that easier to do. And some people might hear that and think, well, great. That means there's more context in there. But you and I both know that you could still probably get the core things onto 1 page. And so it's almost, I think it's making that problem worse. You're talking about more candidates and more stuff to go through.
Yep. 100%. The more data that you have, the longer it's going to take to try to filter through it. And that's why you want to use these tools. You brought up an interesting point of like, don't use AI to create more content and something, because it's kind of like that, like that's like AI 1.0 of like, oh my gosh, I can have it write my job description, which we do. And we utilize that. A lot of companies do it. And you have to play around with it and keep coaching it, but it makes a huge difference. And it can do a lot of stuff really fast, but you do have to work at it to make sure that it is putting all the data that needs to be in there. But to me, the right now where we're at, the big differentiator is like, well, how can I use AI to start making my job easier and actually disseminating extra data to give me more important, pertinent data so I can make a decision faster, not just create something, but how can I make a decision faster, make a better, more educated decision. And so utilizing whatever AI tools that are out there, so Claude, Perplexity are great tools that you can use to try to find like, hey, what are ways that we can disseminate what's real, what's not, and what's a fit and what's not within me. And then obviously utilizing your own personal expertise, because at the end of the day, that's what this comes down to. You're in your job because you need to be able to find that best person for your team, for your company. And the way to do that is just how can we help make it easier to pick from a handful of the candidates versus 300 candidates that you might have initially.
So we're talking all about this early part. My brain's going a little bit deeper into the funnel.
Yep.
Right? You talked about like VPNs. We were using those to do interviews, so they look like they're applying through that. They look like they're from your area. Let's say we're going farther into the process. We've actually started doing some outreach. And what are some of any red flags you can think of that you could share that might be things? Oh, hey, if this happens, maybe give them a second look, or that might be a little bit sketchy if you're looking for some of those things.
Yeah. So you could do something as simple as obviously like, hey, it's a requirement to do a video call. If you're not meeting someone in person, are you doing a video call with them or not? That's super simple, but like that's easy to fake as well. So what a lot of companies are starting to look at now is what kind of global ID verification can I have? You know, in the US, if you're a W-2 employee, you have to do an I-9. That's regulation. But if you're a 1099 employee, you don't have to do an I-9. So now what some companies are starting to look at is how can I do a global ID verification where someone has, you know, like in the US, like a driver's license or a passport to verify that, hey, we're scanning this document remotely. You can scan it remotely. And then we're scanning their face to make sure that it is this indeed the person that I'm talking to is the person from this. And it taps into like Secretary of State's websites as well as DMVs to make sure that this is a real document and that person is who they say they are. Nothing is foolproof. There's a lot of really good tools that are out there though right now that make this almost impossible to spoof, at least right now. I'm sure in 6 months or 6 years, there's going to be a whole other thing. But like for right now, that's what a lot of companies are starting to look at to make sure that we can disseminate the real from the fake candidates. And where you do that in the process, that's up to you. There's different laws and compliance that you have to stay, or rules, regulations you have to stay in compliance with. So talk to your internal teams, and you can talk to background screening providers or verification partners. But things like that are easy. And then also just on deeper in the process, it still doesn't hurt to verify it, you know, someone, as you're getting all these resumes and people are puffing themselves up maybe more than they need to. Let's do an education verification. Let's do an employment verification. If they said they worked for IBM for 15 years, great. We should be able to verify that. If they said that they graduated from XYZ university, great. We should be able to verify that. So don't take a shortcut in hiring people. Always make sure you're doing that due diligence to make sure that they are who they say they are and that they've done what they've said they've done.
So to piggyback off of that, one of my friends is a recruiter. Probably lots of our friends are recruiters, but one of my friends is a recruiter, and he said he always checks their LinkedIn and looks and sees, listen, was this set up in the last 6 months? Because if so, that's kind of sketchy. You probably don't have 15 years of experience at this point and just set that up a few months ago. So even simple things like that, like you're saying, this is not rocket science. It's look at some simple signals that common sense would tell you this may be a little bit weird, a little sketchy, and that can help you to figure that out.
Yeah, and just a super important thing to do as you're going through that. I'm sure all the HR folks that are listening to this know it, but I always feel obligated to say it. Just make sure you're being consistent across the board with whoever you're hiring. That if you're searching their LinkedIn, like make sure you don't just do it for candidate A, do it for everybody, right? Mm-hmm. Be consistent with it, because if you end up going a deeper dive on one person and not on another, that opens up a whole can of worms. We're like, well, why did you search on me, but not on the next person on that? So the important thing for me, what you talk about best practices is going deep and not necessarily wide with all your verifications. Let's make sure that this person is who they say they are. We don't have to, not to say that like, hey, can we confirm a GPA or can we confirm pay comp? Like at least just make sure that we are getting the information that at least that tertiary. Did this person work at IBM? Did they work for Walmart? Did they work at McDonald's? You know, like let's make sure that we have that data correct, and that will go a long way to proving the rest of the resume and making sure that candidate is the right hire.
I thank you for the call out on GPA. By the way, I've fought that one for decades, and I'm going to continue to. There was a story recently from the NCAA, I think, or whatever, like talking about how there are more employers now looking at GPA as a way to filter through candidates, even though it's not a good predictor of someone's capability to do the job. They're using that because like, what else we're going to use? Yeah. And someone was like, hey, great. Make sure you include that in your resume. I'm like, no, don't help that. Don't make that easier for people to use a bad signal. That's not a good way to go.
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, there's a whole bunch of tools that you can use. And it's great to have those into place. And like I said, using uniformity and consistency throughout the process, extremely important. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is like, we're talking to trained, hopefully what I'm assuming is all these trained professionals are listening. Like, you're a trained professional, you're not a computer. So trust yourselves and have your criteria of what you're looking to fit, but you're the talent evaluator. So make sure that you're doing your due diligence and don't just say, hey, we checked all the boxes, but like, is this person the right person for this fit for our company? AI can do an awful lot. It can teach us an awful lot and it can help us find a lot of right fits. But at the end of the day, might not be able to help you find the fit that this, that this cashier or this doctor or this nurse, this lawyer is going to be a good fit for the company, culture wise and skill set wise.
It's funny because I was going to ask you a question and you just answered it before I asked you. So our theme this year for summer school, kudos to you, is the future of work is human. I was going to ask what that means. And that was a great answer right there to answer that piece of it. So I'll throw you a different question for us before we wrap up. You said you've been in and around recruiting HR for most of your career, right? All your career.
Pushing 25 years now, yeah.
Okay. So what is the most important lesson that you've ever learned around recruiting that you're like, if I did not learn this, I would be, I would not have succeeded as much as I have. This is the most important lesson that I've ever picked up from either someone else or I made this mistake and I learned the hard way. Anything you want to share there?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that people make companies and people make good decisions, people make bad decisions. But at the end of the day, people are what make the company. You need to have a great product. There's been plenty of great products and services that are out there, but if they don't have the right people selling it, if they don't have the right people marketing it, if they don't have the right people servicing it, like, it falls flat on their face. And so it's not always the best that wins, but it's the company that's the best. And the people that make up that company are what make that company the best. So just keeping stuff like that in mind and never losing sight of the humanity of the companies that we are. Like, at the end of the day, AI is worthless if you don't have people that are servicing it. If you don't have people that can buy a product, if it's, we can't have computers buying everything, right? There's a company that's there to service humans. And that's what human resources does, is to help service your internal clients at the company. So never lose sight of that.
Okay. I love that one. Great way for us to wrap this up. So my goodness, David, this has been great. I've enjoyed it so much. For the audience out there, we're going to put a QR code on screen here. So some of the screening things that David talked about early on that Verify First does, if you heard some of those, like, we might should be doing that to help us cut through some of this fluff and get to the right candidates, they can help you with that. So scan that QR code. It'll take you to their website. You can look at some of the things they're doing around that and helping companies get rid of some of the noise so they can focus on the signal in the hiring process. David, thank you for joining us today, for taking some time and for the passion around doing this well. I love the stories. I love the examples. And I think the audience gets good practical takeaways. We appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate the invite.
Yes. Okay. All right. Where'd I go? There we go. All right. Not a fake applicant, real person here. Great conversation there around that. I saw some stuff in the chat that creeped me out, frankly, from some of you that are experiencing some of this, where candidates are acting a little bit wild and crazy. So anyway, this is the world we're in. Let's live it. So let's do our best. Use that human judgment. Use your intuition, use the data you can find, try to make your judgment calls around that. So great conversation there. We have one more session, and I'm trying to speed through this a little bit if you can't tell, because I want to make sure we have time at the end to do our wrap up. We have award winners. We have gift cards to give away from people that registered as part of our registration giveaway, all those other things that are coming. So lots of good things ahead in the final portions of summer school. This last conversation is with Tyrese from NASCAR. Tyrese and I had a chance to meet about a year ago. We saw each other just a few weeks ago at another event, and so he and I have a fun conversation. You will laugh at probably at the very last question I asked him, because no one's going to see it coming, and he didn't either. And so it was a fun moment there. So let's jump in with Tyrese. Let's hear about how we can create more connection with our people, how we can create an environment where they can do their best work, where they can be engaged. And this is what he does every single day. Here we go. Hey everyone, welcome to another session here at Summer School. Glad you're here with us. And we're going to spend some time talking about engagement with my good friend Tyrese. I'm so excited about this. We're going to cover some good ground. We're going to talk about all the car metaphors I can sprinkle in, because Tyrese works for a very interesting organization. So here in just a moment. So welcome, my friend. Glad you're here.
It's good to be here, man. I appreciate you. And it's always good to get a chance to speak with you.
Absolutely. I learned something new. I get inspired. I think differently. And so I'm going to tell the audience that right now to expect that in the conversation today. So before we get into some of the fun stuff we're going to be kicking around, take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. So as Ben said, my name is Tyrese. So I had the awesome opportunity of working with NASCAR. And NASCAR, for those that don't know, that stands for the National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing. So I am based in Florida. NASCAR is the largest stock car auto racing organization in North America. So we have a rich history here in the United States, and honestly now spanning across into international regions. But I've been a NASCAR fan since I was a kid, so it's really such an awesome opportunity to be working with NASCAR. So I serve as the Senior Manager of Employee Engagement for NASCAR based in Florida. And what that allows me to do is work with a lot of our teams and departments based in our HR department, and to help drive employee experience, employee engagement, culture, and strategy across our organization. In short, ensuring that all of our employees have a deep understanding and tie to our business strategy. So as we evolve and as we make changes and evolution within the organization, making sure that our employees have a tie and understanding to where we're going, what we're doing, and also understanding how we measure the success, the experience, the involvement of our employees. Basically, how are you feeling? How are you experiencing NASCAR from the inside? So it gives me a great opportunity to do that. I've been here now almost 4 years. So June makes 4 years now. So it's really a cool experience. It's very fun. No day is the same. So there's always something exciting going on within the world of employee engagement. But myself personally, I'm a people person, love to socialize, learn new things, learn new perspectives. And I love to socialize with all of our employees. We have a variety of different locations, racetracks, we have remote employees, and they all touch such a diverse spectrum of places and spaces. So there is no one thing that is done that is better than the next. Everything that we do at NASCAR makes us flow, and the races that you see on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and if it rains, sometimes it's on Monday. Everything that we do within the organization makes those things happen. It's honestly an honor and a privilege, and I count it all joy every single time I get to step into this office or wherever I'm working and work with some of the best employees there are.
Wow, that is really cool. I love hearing someone on the people side of the business talk about the people they care so much, right? There's some people that just go through the motions, but you can tell even that little bit there from you, Tyrese, like you actually care about them, the outcomes they're getting at work, and that makes you that much better at what you do. My wife was a elementary school teacher for 10 years before we had too many kids for her to feel like she could juggle that anymore. But she cared deeply about the kids. And she would always like wonder, like, was this lesson right? Was that lesson right? Like, listen, as long as you start from a point of caring about them, then the rest is going to flow. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We can't start somewhere else though. We can't be academic about it or something else. So that takes me to the first question I want to throw at you. So you have had the opportunity to work specifically around employee engagement for part of your career. What is the most important lesson you've learned about that? Do you want to share?
If I could be candid, I'm still learning that lesson. For me, it's not to expect employee engagement to look one way. I think sometimes with employee engagement, with a lot of different roles, honestly, you can expect employee engagement to have this one singular outlook, or if you develop a strategy or you try to stick to that framework or stick to that thing. When you learn about a culture of an organization, you say, okay, this is what works. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it for this organization. And then things change, people change, things evolve. One month or one quarter, employees are loving this, and then next quarter it's like, we don't want this anymore. We want to do something different. We want to change. And it's like, okay, let's add this. Let's take that out and let's add this. And you have to be very flexible, and you have to be willing to pivot and do things differently. You have to be willing to balance a variety of perspectives. And I think that's the biggest lesson that I continue to learn, because just when you think you know it all, you encounter things that you have never experienced before. And that's not even a bad thing, but it's just being open to, I think, learning, and growing. And I think that's the biggest lesson that I continue to learn, because just when you think you know it all, you really encounter things that you have never experienced before. And that's not even a bad thing, but it's just being open to, I think, learning, and growing. And I think that's the biggest lesson that I continue to learn, because just when you think you know it all, you really encounter things that you have never experienced before. And that's not even a bad thing, but it's just being open to the perspectives of new employees, employees that have been here for years, new hires that come in and their work life and their work balance is different from those that have been here for 5 years, 10 years. That's being aware of the things that are going on in people's lives, in the economy, in the environment, and how that affects engagement, experience. So for me, the biggest lesson that I've learned and continue to learn is make sure that you are willing to pivot, willing to be flexible, and understand that every perspective that you encounter is in some way going to shape how you see engagement or culture or experience within an organization, because it's still shaping that for me. And I'm pretty sure the next few years as I go into my career, I'll probably have to do things that I've never done before. I'm like, and think people like those types of things on the job, or you always shoot for the sky sometimes, and then you realize sometimes employees just literally want a cookie, like they just want a snack. They just
someone to say, "Hey, I saw you do that. Great job."
yeah, it's just like it's just great job. When it's like sometimes it's not about the big grandiose things, it's just hey, you just want something small, just a quick thank you, just a nudge, or just someone to say, hey, I saw that, or someone just to walk around and hey, how are you doing? How's your day? It's like, you know what? My day is great. Sometimes in a moment that can matter more than a gift card. And then sometimes that gift card matters more than, hey, how are you doing? It's just reading the room. And it's really important to be aware and know when to listen in certain moments.
So the thing that seems hard to me about that is that means that, okay, well, listen, if I'm trying to take in all these inputs, it's easy to get swayed one way or the other based on the last person I talked to. It's going to push me one direction or the other. I'm assuming though you have a true north, like this is what it matters. Is it like core values? Something else that's like, it's still got to filter through. This is the thing we're trying to accomplish. I may skew it a little bit this way because it sounds like this is a priority for people, but I've still got to get to this specific outcome, or this specific like value is still our guiding principle. Talk about how you balance that bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so that's actually a good call out though. Those are the moments where we have to say, how do we create broader engagement that's still impactful, not just doing it for the sake of doing it, but still create broader engagement that layers up and is actionable, measurable, but it's still something that employees want. Because there's still the idea that you can do something that is measurable and it is impactful because it layers up to your business strategy, to your goals, your values, but is it what the employees want? So it's like, great, you can measure it, but maybe the organization, the employees, it doesn't resonate with them. So when it comes to engagement, that's the other layer that you really have to consider. Is it something that employees have an appetite for? So that's where feedback comes in. That's where you really have to read the room and understand what's going on around. So that's where things like engagement surveys and listening sessions and doing performance reviews, all of those things really make a difference, because you want to understand how do employees feel, so that as we do things, we do them with intention versus just doing it to measure and to KPIs and metrics and stuff. You have to do it with intention when it comes to people.
My brain, you see the wheels turning over here, like brain.
I'm gonna say, I'm looking at, here's the funny, when I saw you turn and just like look, I'm like, he's thinking.
my brain's going 10 directions at once. I want to, you just talked about metrics and measurement and those things. And so I'm going all this way, Tyrese. So let's go to one of the things that seems very hard to measure for me, but maybe it's a good tie into that conversation about seeing the people and bringing them into this process. You and I were both at a conference recently, and you were on a panel, and it was all around building belonging and connection and making people feel like they're included, like all those sorts of things. And I'm going to cheat a little bit because I missed that session because of a travel thing. And so I'd love to hear like the Cliff notes here, or the Tyrese notes here on what's your perspective on that topic? How do we build belonging? Why does that matter? Pick one of those that you want to talk to for a minute, because I'd love to get your take on how that fits in this bigger picture.
I think that one of the biggest pieces of it, and I touched on it just briefly, is intentionality. Intentionality has to be one of the biggest things that any organization focuses on when you talk about belonging and making sure that people feel connected. Any organization can form itself and hire people and can provide swag and all types of things, but there's always that saying that people don't leave jobs, people leave people. So when people do not feel connected to their organization, it's not as much to do with the environment. In most cases, it has to do with the level of connectivity they have to other persons, whether it's their manager or their colleagues or their leadership. So there has to be a intentional level of engagement and belonging when it comes to how we create spaces within any organization. So when we talk about belonging, whether it's at NASCAR or any other organization, no matter how big or small you are, I know something we touched on that panel was recognition. And recognition is not always something that has to involve monetary or tangible items. Sometimes all you have to do is just tell someone, hey, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate what you did. And not 10 days later, but in the moment, spot of recognition of saying, hey, thank you. I really appreciate you going out of your way because you didn't have to do that. I know now things are very digital, and even at NASCAR, we have a digital process for peer-to-peer recognition, but I still like those, some would say it's traditional or old school, but I think it's still cool to have, I have some here where people will still write you a note. They will write you a note and send it to you and leave it on your desk. And first thing in the morning, I can open this up and I read it where someone said, Dear Tyrese, I wanted to write a quick note to say thank you. And it's like this, I pin it here because I look at these things and I'm like, if there's ever a moment where I forget what I'm doing or forget why I'm here, or I'm just like it's a down day, it's like this reminds me why I'm here. This reminds me that there's a reason and a purpose for what I'm doing. And sometimes when you get lost in the height of the day or in the height of life, physical things like this from another peer, it reminds you, it distracts you from things that may be frustrating or aggravating. So these things are intentional. And those things really make people feel good when they know that their work is being valued, not just for the sake of saying it, but truly with intention. So I think if there's anything to call out in helping to make organizations function and creating an environment that folks want to come to every single day, it's just operating with intention. It's really just being genuine and creating a space where, yes, every day isn't going to always be frolicking through the flowers and you're going to feel good every day. No, it's not, because there's work to be done.
It's work.
And, it's like you want to have leaders that will remind you, it's like, hey, you want to come and you want to have quote unquote fun, but there's still a business and there's still work that has to be done, but you still want to have that level of interconnectivity where as we're working, you feel that camaraderie, being intentional and recognizing people for the work that they do, or going above and beyond, better yet, because we all come to work, that's what we're here for. But when you go above and beyond and you celebrate people just for making the sacrifice of showing up, I think that's where any organization can really turn the corner in making sure that their employees feel like this is the place I want to be, is by being intentional.
I'd be remiss if George Rogers was here, he would say, well, that's how we define belonging in the research, right? Acceptance, respect, and appreciation, that combination of things. And you talking about taking that moment to say, I saw what you did, right? I appreciate what you did. That's worthy of comment. All those things are encompassed in something seemingly small and yet massive on that human interaction scale. So your card there reminded me too, I used to have a thing I called my smile file where I would keep all the special notes and kind words and everything else, the feedback and stuff. And one of my friends was like, you got to print that out because it's too easy to get lost in the digital world. And I like that you said, no, there's a physical thing and it's right there. And that's my visual cue to do that. And so that's my encouragement to anybody else. If you get those things, save it, because there's going to come a day when you need it. And it's going to be right there ready for you. Okay. You've been so careful and deliberate in all the things you said. And I want to ask you a question that's completely funny and off the wall. You have no idea what it's about to be, but are you okay with that?
This should be good.
Before we wrap up, I'm going to shift gears. Okay. So to the audience, if you've noticed in the background there behind Tyrese, he's got a really cool Tom and Jerry thing in the background. And I want to ask you, Tyrese, is HR more like Tom or Jerry?
I want to say that HR is a little more like Jerry. I say that because Jerry is my favorite character, so I'm probably biased anyway.
Okay. You got to play the hero too. There it is. Okay.
Yeah, it's like Jerry's my favorite character, but I just feel like Jerry is just very crafty. He's smart. He's witty. Tom is always the one trying to chase, but Jerry just anticipates it. He knows what's coming. He's ready. It's like he can just sleep and he knows I'm not even worried about it. And it's like he always finds a way out. There's always an answer. It has its own level of chaos, of course, but it's just still caring, compassionate, just knows how to get things done, just very clever. And that's what I think of when it comes to HR. It's like they know how to get things done. They're very clever. They're very crafty. It's like when you think they don't know, they already knew.
Yes, they already figured it out. I like that. Okay. I joke all the time. A big part of our job is just figuring things out, right? It's not written down. Someone's got to find a way. Hey, Tyrese, go figure out how to make all those employees happy. By the way, this thing just changed and none of them are happy. Go figure it out. You know what? I got it. I've been planning for this. Let's make it happen. So I love that one. So thank you for humoring me on that. I appreciate it. If anyone in the audience wants to connect with you, wants to follow you and just stay connected after this, is LinkedIn the best way to do that?
Absolutely. LinkedIn is the best way to connect. Feel free to send me a follow or ping me on LinkedIn, send me a message, and I am happy to connect and get in touch with me whenever you can. I love conversation. I love making new networks and connections. So happy to do that.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining, for your passion for your people. It comes through in how you talk about this, and for, again, humor me there at the end. So thank you again for that. To everybody else out there, you've heard it here first. Be the Jerry. Go out there and figure out how to solve some big problems. Always be planning ahead, and it's going to work out for you like it does for him. Thank you all for joining us for this session. Stay tuned for more Summer School coming right up. So that was fun. I love watching George behind the scenes when he sees or hears me ask a question, and he's like grinning ear to ear when I asked him about that. But then George's comment made it. So George called him like, "I'm Tom." A little bit all over, and Ben's Jerry, like, got a plan, baby, got a plan.
Yeah, it's what it is. Like I got all these cool ideas, but Ben takes me there. Right. So
we gotta find a way.
What good is a wrench ball if you don't know how to open it up? You know.
See, speechless again. Like on day one, I don't know how to answer that one. I don't drink. I don't eat ranch. So there's that. Maybe I don't know. Sacrilege for our friends, the ranch community out there.
Don't remind everybody of what you don't do, Ben. Like now they're gonna have to know you don't like ranch, you don't drink coffee, and you don't like peanut butter and chocolate together. Like those may be the three things that keep you from the Golden Gate, sir.
Three strikes. I am out. I'm out. Thank you, Tyrese, again for that session, man. Fun conversation. I surprised him with that question. We laughed about it after we were done. He said, "I did not know where you go with that," and it ended up being fun to sort of recap on it. So great session, and love and appreciate him. And one of our big takeaways, George, was many people found out what NASCAR actually stands for. Yeah, as it's own analogy. Trav, when he's like, "George, it's already an analogy. You know, it stands for things or an acronym. Sorry, acronym. It's already an acronym. So you don't need to add another one to NASCAR. We're all good.
Make our own. We're going to redo it.
We got some announcements and things, and we're gonna share a bit before we wrap up. Right?
Sounds like a deal.
Okay, so we mentioned this at the very beginning today for all of you, but we have a way for this to continue. The thing that's fun and the thing that's tiring is we see people here in the last 10 minutes saying, "Man, I could have done with 5 days of summer school this year," or "Can we do this every Tuesday and Thursday all summer long?" Lighthouse communities, we're going to start building some of that interaction, engagement together and getting connected around that. So that's one of the opportunities there. If you want to get in, it's available now. We're going to start adding this stuff in there. I was telling George, we're going to be sending out summer school notebooks to everybody that signs up before Friday. So just another fun incentive for people to get connected into the community, what we're doing. George, what's next? Drive those slides, sir. Drive those slides. All right. So we have some winners here. If your name is on the list, please, you can screenshot if you need to. But Jill's going to be reaching out. She has emails, addresses for everybody who signed up. So you see your name on here. Expect a message from her in the next 24 hours confirming. And we've got to get our prize list all organized so we can make sure we get everything out. But she'll work with you to get a good mailing address. One of the things that we did a few weeks ago as part of our registration push was tell people if you sign up by a certain date, then you are eligible to win a gift card. And so we picked those. We had Jill do a random drawing on some people for that gift card. So if you see your name there, congrats, you won something special out of this. So we do this as a thank you to all of you for coming along with us, for like George and I, we riding high this wave of endorphins for days. And so we're grateful to all of you for being here. What's next? That's your verbal cue, George. That is when I say what's next. It's like get your finger ready to go to that.
I'm waiting for the magic wand, Ben. I'm waiting for the magic wand.
The magic wand is put away in the drawer right now. So HR Summer School Spring Break. Next year, we are working with the Transform team to do an HR Summer School live there on site. We're going to have some ticket discounts and all the other stuff for our people in our community. So we're going to be sharing more details on that. If you like the community aspect to this and you want to actually meet the people in person, like we talked about this week, we had some people come together in Nashville. We had them in Huntsville last year where I'm based. That was a ton of fun. We're going to do this bigger. George was at Transform this year and met like a dozen people from summer school, just happened to be there on site. And so that was a fun connection. If you scan that code, it will let you just drop your email address in. It will email you when we get some more details on that. So we're just ironing that out with them right now, but we wanted to give you a heads up. If you want to do spring break with us, we're going to do some fun programming, some special stuff, a group picture for our yearbook. Maybe, I don't know. We'll figure that one out. So some fun things on that front. All right, George, your turn.
We like to talk, Ben. We like to talk together. So this is one of my favorites, still to this day, one of my favorite opportunities. This was Adobe, where we did a co-keynote, but we are open for this summer, fall, next year, winter as well, and then Q1. If you have an event and or your company is looking for somebody to come in and do workshop, whether it's in leadership development, whether it's in culture work, whether that's talking about AI and how your leadership team can save 10 hours a week. Ben will love to do those things. So we got plenty of workshops, leadership development, all the things that you've heard this week and more. We're very passionate about that. We will love to join, connect, and work alongside your partner. Shout out to those that we're working with right now and that we're coaching and doing leadership development for. We see a lot of y'all in the chat, Miss Terry, and the group over there. So shout out to those companies and organizations. But like I said, you can reach out to us, events@lhra.io. And Jill and our team will get connected with us, and we'll love to support your work.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, Ben, this is the worst slide. This is
the last slide, George.
It's so hard to say goodbye. Thank you.
I wasn't going to try to even saying anything.
I still got a voice of an angel. I got a voice of an angel, Ben. The angel has just died. That's all.
No.
Thank y'all to the hundreds and the thousands. We've had over 400 plus people. Typically the last day, there's not a lot of students showing up. They're trying to skip school, but y'all have shown up and shown out both on LinkedIn, YouTube, and the StreamYard platform as well. 3,000 plus of y'all registered, and we are forever grateful for each and one of you. We're talking our 7th year graduate program students all the way to our freshmen. We want to say thank you. As you have blessed us, we hope that everything that we provided you, the speakers and our partners have brought to you has been good for you, from the United States to Canada to Ghana to 10 plus other countries. We want to say thank you all for joining us from around the world. And once again, thank our partners who have been a part of this, the iSolves, the High Bobs, Verify First, Take Command, Cornerstone, and Bucket List for being a part as well. And there's one more.
Employee. Yeah,
Employee. I had it, Ben. I was doing a jump roll because I was successful.
Sorry. I ruined that for you.
Yeah,
okay.
You ruined my shine. I was excited.
That's me.
But thank you to each and every one of our partners. We're so glad to have HR Summer School 2026 come. And now we're at the end, Ben. What has been your biggest highlight as we wrap off here in final words?
Well, really quickly, Kristen's like, can we give a thanks to Jill? Jill's the one who is setting up all the stuff behind the scenes. If you're getting an email from us, she's doing that. If you're getting a prize from us, we just like pick a name and she just makes it all happen, and it's great. So we are grateful to Jill for the work she's done here and for all of our events. We're appreciative of her. So great call out, Kristen. Very specific feedback. Jill, you're rocking it on the events. Keep it up, my friend. All right. My big takeaway, George, when you and I talked about this, and I told you back in January, I said, I think I want to do something that's counterintuitive to what we're seeing in all the news. I said, I want to really go crazy on this, the future of work is human thing. I was hopeful that it would land. I was hopeful it would connect to people and that they would feel that sort of thing. And you and the team started working on the shirt. I saw these things start to come to life as we started talking to these speakers. There was not one of them that stumbled over that question. When I asked them that question, they're like, yes, and here's how it works. And so to me, that validates that we all know the right direction. We all know the right path, and we have to make sure we're carrying that message beyond the walls of our friends here in the community and tell our other leaders to be that vocal voice saying the people have to matter. The people have to matter because they're the ones who are going to show up when you need them. If that AI falls apart or you've used all your tokens, come back tomorrow, right? Those sorts of things are limitations, but the people are the ones that are going to show up, give that extra effort, and they'll be there for you. And so that's the big thing for me, George. Did you have a takeaway for you that was the key thing, or a standout acronym for you this week? Anything like that?
I think Booger steals the show because it reminds me of adults that the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Still working with young kids and youth today is that they're a direct reflection of us as adults. But I'll say as we close this moment together, Ben, I just want to speak directly to those who are listening today and encourage you, but also demand, if I can, if I can make one demand, I want to encourage, but also demand that we do not rush back into the noise. I want to encourage you and accept and receive the fact that I want you to carry clarity because as we talked about all week, the future of work won't be defined by systems. It's not going to be defined by speed and the technology we use or the structure alone. I believe it's truly going to be defined by the courage that we show in how we lead people every single day. And so for me, I haven't answered this question. Somebody asked me in person Wednesday, and I said, I'll end it with this. And so for me, Ben, the future of work is human. When leaders choose connection over convenience, when we choose courage over comfort, and when people over process. And that's for me is what it's all about. The future of work is human. When leaders choose connection over convenience, courage over comfort, and people over process.
It's a tremendous way to wrap up. Thank you, George, as always, my friend, for being there with me, for championing this community, championing your own purpose, and being the best co-host, companion, brother, whatever you want to call it for all this. So I'm so grateful for your inputs here and for all of you for being with us. Thank you again for hanging out. You can get your codes there for the event for all those that need that. And we'll be in touch very soon. We'll be sharing some extra details with you. We have a survey coming up. We want to get some input from all of you about where we should do this. If we're going to do it live next year in June, where should we be in person? So we're going to give you all a chance to let your voice be heard. And we want to hear more from all of you and then turn around and give you back even more value than you would have asked for. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you for your support. And we will see you very soon.
3, 2.
We want to thank all of you so much for joining us on the live stream.
For more information, make sure you visit. That was really good. Here we go. For more information, 3, 2. And for more information, make sure you visit our website at lhra.io.
Okay, and just for editor purpose, can we just try the whole thing? Thanks for joining, and for more information, go ahead. I'm rolling. You're ready.
Thank you so much for joining us for our live stream today.
And for more information, make sure you join lhra.io for more information.
For More information.
For more information, for more information. Here, last try. We got it now. I'm getting hungry. Can you tell?
Do you want to start this one off?
No, because it's you want to do the for more information part?
I will sure do that.
All right, here we go. 3, 2. Thank you for joining this live stream.
We appreciate all.
Ooh.
This is when Lucas is like, I just want to leave here.
Oh, you making me sweat.
If his stuff wasn't set up, he'd just walk out.
All right, here we go. We want to thank everybody for joining us today on this live stream.
For more information, you can find our website at lhra.io.
Nice. Very